Yeah, there you go. There you go. How about Mr. Nunziata? If you could invite any famous American to spend the weekend with us, who would it be?
I don't know.
I'm glad I'm asking the questions.
Yeah, this is a tough
Do they have to be alive?
Doesn't say. It's up
I mean,
to you.
You'd assume they
Let's say we'll have Oprah come so she can donate some money and
Oprah.
solve our financial crisis.
Oprah?
There you go.
Great idea.
And there's $1 million.
Natalie, I didn't bother you. What belief gives you strength?
Oh, my faith in God and Jesus.
Nice.
Good for
Nice.
you. Teresa,
Yes.
what could you do to make the world a better place?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What could you do to make the world a better place?
Oh, the world to make a better place, what could I do? Well, I believe dogs bring happiness and puppies.
Aw.
And I love to foster and rescue dogs, so I would probably foster and rescue so many more, and then I would invite like kids over, and I would do like a big, like animal
party.
sanctuary, just to make life better for them and for other people and bring happiness.
Awesome. Do I have
Miss Davino,
Oh no! I didn't want to be on the receiving end.
what do you like best about life?
Oh, I have to have one answer?
It said
You can
best
expand.
Okay, what do I like best about life?
about life.
I like my children and I love to learn.
There you go. Coalition, you have made our day.
These
Matt?
are the best
Matt?
fun ever.
We're good? Do we have any comments coming through?
I just asked, I haven't seen any yet.
We
Okay.
can post some
All right,
questions
we do have
on
a
the
second.
live stream.
We do have a second public participation session, so I will close it to the public at this time. Item E is review of the public meeting agenda. It should be in your packets. Any questions or comments at this time? We're going to have on the closed session the contractual matter. You'll add that for next
Yes.
week.
I was just curious, on the public agenda, there is some correspondence that has some medical leaves and some retirements. Are they just not on this week because of, it's not time sensitive?
That's exactly right. We're trying to keep as much as possible off the work session. We promised you that we would do that, but there are things that are time sensitive. Even though it's only a week, Mr. Sparta, I thought that the other ones could be there.
That's fine. Any other questions or comments about the public meeting agenda? Okay, item F, correspondence. Ms. Reese?
Yes, we've received letters from 2 employees asking for medical leave or extending a medical leave. And 2 employees, 1 employee on maternity, and from Cheryl Whitney, a part-time aide at Glen Meadow Middle School, indicating her resignation, effective 11/10/2020.
Thank you. Mr. Vino? Item G?
Mr. Vino, can we mention 2 folks that we lost
Yeah,
in the
I
past
had
couple
that
weeks?
in my notes.
Do you-
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll start.
Yes.
Certainly can ask Chuck to fill in on one of them. So, it's always difficult working in a school district when you lose people you care for. In Vernon, we've lost students. And in the past week, we actually lost 2 faculty members. One member was a secretary of our child study team over at Lansbury Hollow, and she was employed in the district. How long was Grace here, Chuck?
Well, Grace has been here for over 20 years.
Yeah, so over 20 years. Grace McDonald was one of our secretaries over at Lansbury Hollow, and she was kind of the face of special education at Lounsbury and throughout. For many of our parents worked with her time and time again, as well as
Absolutely.
child study team members and case managers. And then, although she was only with us for a short time, we also lost Deb Merrill last week, who was our director of special services. She only served in the district for about a year and 3 or 4 months. But sadly, we lost 2 really kind-hearted souls who cared very deeply about not just children of special needs, but the children of Vernon. So if the board and public doesn't mind, if we could just have a moment of silence to honor the loss of those two folks, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vino. That means a lot to me
Yeah.
and us.
Yeah, good
Thank you.
people.
Thank you, folks.
Discussion items?
Yes.
Before we go into the discussion items, I did want to echo the comments of Mr. Sparta a few minutes ago. For the public, while we were getting set up with the camera, we had Riley Smaldone and the members of the coalition present the Board of Education with some gifts. And I just wanted to publicly acknowledge again the fine work of the coalition. The action group through the coalition does fine work throughout the community. They are really exemplar role models to other students and to our families. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you, even taking the conversation box and kind of talking a little bit with my fellow members of the board. I think is a nice way to remember that even though we're struggling through some really, really, really difficult times, we have each other to lean on and to count on. And that was a really wonderful reminder tonight. So I just wanted to thank you and acknowledge you publicly. I think that was very thoughtful, so thank you. The next item on the agenda is the reopening plan. Dr. McKay and I had originally planned on presenting the
Yes, we did.
reopening plan. Today, there were some changes to that plan. That correspondence was sent out earlier today. It was outlined in a letter from Dr. McKay and I. Unfortunately, due to some changes in COVID and some other things, some things have changed. So I will just give a couple of bulleted items. The board received correspondence, so did the community. Basically, when we started to plan on bringing the blue and gold together effective Monday, November 16th, we started planning that in October. We started planning that a long time ago. It was presented a couple of times, or variations were presented a couple of times in the October board meetings, October 18th, October 15th. And when you plan that far out, you always run the risk of figuring out that plan may not come to fruition. Unfortunately, due to the rising numbers of COVID, teacher shields that have been ordered but have not come in yet, which were an additional piece of PPE as part of that plan, as well as some challenges with staff shortages. I'm going to speak about that in a minute. It will not be possible to sufficiently roll out that plan next Monday. I just want to be really specific about the staff shortages, and I'll give you an example. And I want to be really specific. In Vernon, we have not had COVID transmitted in our schools. Not from child to child, not from adult to child, not from child to adult. I know there are a lot of rumors out there in the public. In fact, I'm hearing that this may be the case for all of Sussex County, that we are finding that families are going to work because they have to work. Let's face it, people need to go to work. And teachers are sometimes being exposed to a spouse who is infected in their place of work and getting ill that way. Children are getting infected from their parents. So I wanted to be specific about that. When I say a staff shortage, here are some of the challenges. It's not just Vernon employees, it is everybody. So when any one of us go to a wedding, or go to a doctor's office, or go in another town, it happened at a horseback riding stable, whenever people are engaging in any kind of interaction and they expose themselves, unintentionally of course, and they end up, and you all know the rules by now, right? If you're a close contact, your doctor will tell you have to quarantine for 14 days. So what happens is that when our faculty or staff are told you have to quarantine for 14 days, that means for 2 weeks, we need to find subs for those people. And for my fellow members of the board, you might remember a year ago, before COVID, we were short on subs then. In fact, there's been a substitute teaching shortage in the state of New Jersey at least 5 or 6 years now. So you can understand how it would be even more difficult to find subs during COVID. So for all of those reasons, we have made some adjustments, which means that effective Monday, the cohorts will not be coming together at this point. We're going to maintain the hybrid model next week and the very short week before Thanksgiving. We'll have our Thanksgiving break. And then after Thanksgiving, we'll have 1 week of virtual. That was recommended to us by our public health officials. And the last piece is that we are in the yellow category right now in Sussex County. We are close to being in the orange. The health department is recommending that if we go to orange, that they think we should consider fully remote instruction. I'm not saying we're committing to that at this point, but it is something we're monitoring closely. So those are the recent changes, bullet points to things that have changed from last week to this week. And I do want to apologize to the public. Creating a plan based on things moving and changing is extremely difficult to do, and trying to take into consideration the needs of everyone, that includes our families, our children, our faculty, is very difficult. And I'm sorry, because I don't want to disrupt people's lives, and I know that I have done that time and time again with the changes, but it's my responsibility to try to keep people safe and to try to keep people engaged and having some semblance of education. I see so many of our students here. Now, you guys know that I'm a parent as well as your superintendent, and it's very difficult for our kids. I know what that's like for all of you. And these are the things that we're facing as regular challenges. And unfortunately, I think this will continue throughout the school year. I think we're going to be kind of limping through the end. Nothing is certain. It's kind of ever changing. So, if the next few weeks will get us
Right.
through Thanksgiving, and then we will kind of reevaluate. And I think Chuck has some additional
Just
data.
so
that he
so
wants to
everybody's
share.
aware of how quickly things have changed, when we presented the report on October 16th or 17th, and we were talking about what we wanted to do in that second board meeting, at that point in New Jersey, there was 934 cases. Then by yesterday, there's now 3,065 cases per day. So everything is changing, and we're doing the very best we can. And I know that some people don't think we're doing the best we can, but I just want to say, as assistant superintendent, I'm proud to work with a superintendent who has the ability to look at something and go, we're going to have to change this. It's a new day, and we're trying everything we possibly can to make sure that we give an education to our children in these very troubled times. So kudos to you, Superintendent.
Thank you.
So I'd like to maybe pause here in the conversation, because I'm sure there are board members who may have questions or comments.
Yes. Certainly.
And hopefully we'll have some answers for you.
I do have one just to start. Are we going to be, I know that you sent out a communication to the full district.
Right.
Yes.
Are we going to be communicating directly, one-on-one with the families who were virtual, but were
Yes.
planning on returning on Monday to
Yes.
in-person? Because they may choose not to, or they may choose to, but then they need to be assigned a cohort.
We
Yeah,
sent emails, I sent emails out this afternoon to the different principals, building administrators.
Okay.
To let their office staff know that phone calls need to go home to those folks who have
They're
made
gonna
that
get personal
decision.
calls tomorrow.
Okay, so
And
it's going to be a
then-
one-on-one communication.
Exactly,
Yes.
and they're going to tell us what their choice, if their choice
Right.
remains to go virtual, to remote, and then we will then do the scheduling again and we'll have the schedule the way we have it now, and we'll try to make sure that Jen Sherrill has it all in
Genesis.
Genesis, and make sure that parents are available. So
Yeah.
we have some real work to do in the next 48 hours, but we'll try to get it done.
The other thing that we'll do, just to piggyback off of that, is that tomorrow we'll send out a blast, just to remind everybody that on Monday, only blue cohort learners should come to school, because if parents did not read the email today, they may be thinking they can just send their child on the bus on Monday.
Right.
And we want to make sure that there are no problems with
And when are
the,
you
know,
sending that out?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
We'll do a blast. We wanted to speak with the board first, and the public can hear from all of you. But just a quick reminder, sometimes when people get that alert kind of on their phone, it looks like a text message. It's far easier than reading through all of this text to try to figure out what the plan is.
But
So
this
we-
is the
we
master
can-
packet.
We can do it by text message, because like, if
Yes.
a parent gets like a remind,
Yes.
like, I think that's so much easier than reading through that
Right.
entire list.
Yes, I had
Yeah.
a fruitful meeting with Matt this afternoon.
We're gonna do an emergency phone call, text message, email blast, website, like we're gonna do.
Like a snow day, like you would have
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, we'll do that
That would be so helpful, I
Yeah.
think, because it's just like email after email, that gets.
Just not at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
It's not at 5 a.m.
Any other questions or comments at this point in the conversation?
I have a question. So in the podcast, you referred to a virtual plan that you had all ready to go if we should go orange and need to go all virtual.
Yes.
Can you give us any details about that plan? How will that be different from what we had in the spring and from what
What we were
people are
looking for with
experiencing now?
what we were looking for with the virtual plan was getting input from each of our teachers. So what we did was we formed each of the skip committees, and they met with the principals, and they met with other people in curriculum. And then they gave us their individual plans in each of the buildings. And we're trying to keep a consistent time period, and it would all be synchronous. But remember that that's a little bit different in each one of the buildings. So I can publish that plan as we move towards orange. But we do have a plan in place, and I said that in the podcast to make sure that people understood that we were not only planning for this change, but we were also planning if there was an eventuality where we had to go out because of the COVID numbers.
So that is a plan about how the synchronous learning will work, or?
Yes.
I'm not, okay. So does that mean teachers will teach from home? Will they teach, they'll
That's a very interesting question. When we talked about the virtual plan, one of the things that the skip committee asked in each one of the buildings was, and Vinny, I'm not sure if it was each of the buildings, but it was almost every building, in which our dedicated staff said that they would like to come in.
I think we're going to give them a choice. It's
And
not-
teach from
yeah.
the school, and we were going to give them a choice.
Teresa,
Oh,
were you?
yeah, agenda. Okay. I had a question. I've been getting asked, but I wasn't sure. How come there's 1 week of virtual post-Thanksgiving instead of 2 weeks like a quarantine?
I can answer that. So, thank you, Teresa. It's a legitimate question. So, what we've been advised from public health is that when someone shows signs or symptoms of COVID, usually that happens on the 4th or 5th day after being exposed to COVID-19 and a positive case from somebody else. So, for example, since Thanksgiving technically is Thursday, but you have that whole weekend, right? Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. God forbid, but if somebody develops symptoms or doesn't feel well, they could be developing them as late as 4 or 5 days after Sunday, which would be through that virtual week. And at that point, that person, child, teacher, parent, whatever, would have to choose to go get tested or to quarantine. But at least it gives that 1 week time frame so that if there are symptoms showing up, or perhaps you've had your Thanksgiving dinner and didn't realize that your uncle or whoever you were sitting with was COVID positive, it just gives that time so that people can, if they're exposed due to more family gatherings, to make some personal decisions on quarantining rather than doing the entire 2 weeks.
Thank you.
I also have one other question. You also referred to in the podcast the success rate, or rather that significant numbers of students are struggling this marking period.
Yes.
Can you clarify, can you give us any more
Sure.
details on,
Sure.
what you mean by significant and how they're struggling?
Sure. The marking period closed today, and what I've been hearing from going into each of the buildings, but particularly in certain buildings, high school in particular, is that for whatever reason, our students are struggling. Some work is not being handed in, and teachers are saying grades are significantly lower. The data will come out in the next 3 or 4 days to either prove that or disprove that, but our concern was that our students who were sitting in a classroom and a teacher was working with them or working with them virtually was worried about engagement. And we're concerned about that, and we're concerned that that may be a sign and symptom of our students struggling with mental health or struggling with concerns that they had or depression. So I think that the next week is going to be very important for this district as we look at those grades and talk to our folks and try to figure out what we can do for our students to help with the engagement.
At our
Can we,
seats, you gave us
Did we-
copies. At our seats, you gave us copies of a flow chart for trauma-informed coordinators.
Yes, I did.
So can you walk us through a little bit, like what role these individuals
Sure.
will
Can
play?
I just talk about grades real quick before
Sure,
we go?
sure.
Is there a possibility that we could just opt in on pass-fail? Like, could we do that at this juncture?
No. We have told the staff that they are to give grades for the year, so I don't think that would be prudent.
I don't think that really helps the situation moving
No,
forward.
I don't
anyway.
either.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's
I mean, didn't
honestly,
we do that in the spring,
and I think
though?
that's what's
We did.
causing the issue now.
Yeah.
Back in the spring, we went pass-fail. It was only supposed to be for
2 weeks.
to
3
finish
weeks.
out the third marking period,
Right.
and then we decided we were fourth marking period, we were gonna do grades, we got partway into it, we said, oh, let's just do pass-fail. And honestly, I think the kids have come, you know, accustomed to that pass-fail. And, you know, Kelly, you and I had a conversation today, and, you know, I kind of made a comment to you that you get out of education what you put into it. And I think when there's a pass-fail option there, I think kids will put in the minimum effort in order to just pass.
Keep
Not all
going.
kids, some kids. And then that parlays into struggling down the road.
I agree with you on that. The only thing is that there's a time where you could be just grateful for treading water. And I think that at this time, the struggle that some students might be having, I think that would help them just at least tread water and not go down a downward spiral.
But I also think too, and coming from, I had this conversation with a teacher today who has a child in college, so we were talking about what's going on with our kids in college. And, you know, if we were normally expected our student to get a B, as parents, we should maybe back off and say, you know, we're happy with a C in these times, that you don't want to push the kids extra hard. But you still have to have some sort of criteria there in order for them to strive for something rather than just putting in the effort just to get a pass.
But
You
Brad,
also-
what if your child gets an F?
Then they obviously weren't putting in much effort.
But that,
You know,
I don't
and
think
first
that's,
also
I
too,
don't
a
think
lot
that's
of-
a fair
I think,
assessment.
I think it's very fair when you talk to a lot of teachers who tell you the kids aren't even calling in on their Zooms. And when, you know, there's been many, many teachers, and I've heard this and I've seen it, that they are not present at the times they're supposed to be present. And I think if the students were present when they were supposed to be, I think the teachers would be understanding of it. But when you have a long list of work that is outstanding, and you have kids that are not coming to Zooms, whether it be synchronous learning or whatever it may be at the time, you know, I hate to say you kind of probably deserve an F, but you deserve an F.
So I hear where both of you are coming from. You know, I have in the past advocated for pass-fail. I do see how our educators value having the data and the metrics of a grading system. There are other reasons why students might be failing other than effort alone, right? If they're dealing with depression or
Sure.
anxiety.
Sure.
And that's where I think that the trauma-informed
Well, that's-
coordinators,
that-
if used well,
Right.
can really be helpful with this.
So if you
That's
look
a
at,
targeted
speak to this?
approach.
yeah, if you look at this chart, I'm sorry, did I cut somebody off? Oh, okay. When you look at this chart, the teacher contacts the students, and to the left it says student is now working. So the teacher says, you know, Johnny, thanks for stopping in today. We had our discussion, and I noticed that you were in on the Zoom, and I just want to make sure that you're missing these 3 assignments and, you know, try to get them into me. And Brad, you're right. The teachers are doing everything they possibly can to make sure that the students have time to make this happen. If there's no response, then the teacher can contact the guardian, and it's sort of traditional, you know, and then the student's now working. But if there's no response or improvement, the teacher then can contact the grade level case manager or the guardian or a guidance counselor, and the idea simply is to start to build towards, we've contacted 4 or 5 people, now we're worried, right? And we're doing well visits in this district. We're doing things where we're concerned about students and the work that they are doing. So I think the grades actually are an indicator in one small way of students who may be struggling.
Yeah.
And that
disengagement.
probably is the message at this point, not to be too punitive, but the message that we need to hear, which is if a significant amount of our students are struggling, we need to start to really concern ourselves with that, not because they're Fs, but because there's a reason for that.
Question?
Yeah.
Is there-
Is this something
is there-
that
is
we
there-
were,
Oh, hold on.
sorry.
Is there a timeline associated with this flow chart? So like how many days before, if there's no response?
No, it's pretty rapid, Mark. I'm sorry. The question was, and I don't, but I'm pretty sure, and we have a spreadsheet. I think it's 24 hours. Like the teacher will contact the student or the parent, and if there's no response within 24 hours, they move right to the next one. Yeah, I think it's pretty, don't quote me, but it's no more than 48, I can tell you that much.
Okay, so this
Yeah, it's
isn't
24
weeks,
to 48 hours.
this is days on this flow chart.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Jen, did you have an additional question?
sorry.
Yeah, I had a point and a question. One thing is, I understand what Brad was saying about students not being there when they're supposed to be there and the missing assignment thing. And I think that the trauma coordinator, or whatever the person is a wonderful idea. But because what I've been hearing is that kids don't always know when those Zooms are. And because we aren't as a district, we haven't had them all day the way some districts have had. Every class is synchronous. It's with us, it's some days are, you've got synchronous on Monday and every morning you have to check and find out whether or not you have a Zoom. And I know that for me personally, I've had to send my kids, the Zoom link at times because they couldn't find it. And so sometimes I wonder if it isn't more of a problem of just organization, and if the support that some of these kids might need is someone to kind of get them oriented on when they have a Zoom and where to find their assignments. It is not, as straightforward as you might think. I mean, I know that from my own children and from other parents who, are confused about the start times, and then there's virtual Wednesday and everything changes. And, it's a little bit difficult. And I think what might happen with some kids is they lose the thread of it, get overwhelmed, fall behind, and then it's a spiral, because what happens when things start to go south with a grade, and you're missing, and before you know it, there's sort of a giving up mentality where it's like, I can't get a handle on this, I'm just gonna check out. I think that could be an issue, and I'd be curious to know, this was the question part, did we not know this? I mean, it sounds like it's new information at the end of the marking period, but weren't we, tracking this stuff all marking period? Did we know this was going on? And how long have these trauma people been, reaching out? And
Yeah, so
Right.
I think, Jennifer, your one question, I'm sorry, I just want to be sure, was that, did we not know that children were struggling? Is that what you meant to be not know this?
well, it sounded like it was kind of like, oh, we're at the end of the marking period, and it turns out a significant number of kids are really, not doing well. And I just wondered, did we not really have a sense of that until we got to the end of the marking period, or
No.
were how long have we been aware that, wow, we're having, a real drop off in
Yeah, so
metrics here?
I don't know if you recall, but the trauma-informed coordinators were actually hired and approved with the CARES money back in August. I mean, these folks were put into place before the school year started. The chart that Dr. McKay passed out was developed by Kristen Gudenkoff, our district supervisor of guidance, and that was distributed and started working from day one, the beginning of the school year. So we've been tracking students' progress, or lack thereof, right, from the beginning of the school year. And the steps that Dr. McKay just outlined are the variety of levels, right, that we can take to try to support students. So we started at the beginning of the school year. Did we know that children were going to fail or going to struggle? No. I would say that your example is something that we've spoken about many, many times publicly. I gave an example at one of the October meetings of, finding the links. And look, these things are the challenges with any kind of virtual platform, right? So when we're looking at any kind of virtual platform, blended learning, hybrid learning, synchronous or asynchronous, remember that all of those types of teaching were never created to use in isolation. Blended learning was actually created to supplement regular teaching. It was never created to replace teaching, right? So, therein lies the problem. And I am finding that our teachers are posting links.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
They are there, and I think that it is a challenge to navigate through them, but I don't know that there's anything we can do to address that, but Chuck wanted to follow up.
I want to say that in the beginning of the year, we wanted to make sure we didn't have the problem that we had last spring with people saying that they couldn't find things. So I sent a memo out to our staff And they have been doing this, so I just wanted to make sure that you knew that this is what I said to the staff. Please provide clear information in your daily updates on Schoology. Students need to know what is due each day. Some parents and guardians and students are reporting that they're having trouble finding assignments and deciphering how to submit them. This will decrease or eliminate the debates about, quote, not knowing what was due, and will prevent the late submission of work. And then I said to our folks, please post assignments in Genesis with the dates and input students' grades within a week's time, unless it's a major assignment. This will help administrators, school counselors, students, parents, guardians monitor and correct any issues in a timely manner. And then I asked, please plan to check in virtually with your students every virtual Wednesday. You should be following the special schedule developed for those Wednesdays. And then I said, attention to these protocols will help all of us monitor student progress and more accurately and address areas of concern in an effort to improve student outcomes. Thank you for your assistance with these matters. And I have to say, as I'm checking in Schoology, our teachers are doing that.
And our administrators are doing virtual walkthroughs on Schoology.
Yes, they are.
To observe classes and to see the teachers are posting links in the updates so that they can be found.
Can I just ask a
Yeah, I'm not suggesting, I'm sorry, I just want to say that I'm not suggesting teachers aren't doing that. It's just that I hear from parents quite frequently that they're having trouble knowing when, the Zoom, like your kid has to go on in the morning and look for every Zoom, and they don't all post it at the same, in the same place. It is all there. It's all there. I'm not saying it's not there, but I know that, parents and kids have said that they can't, they have a hard time finding this information. So I wondered if part of the trauma, whoever we have helping these students and parents could, maybe maybe if that's an issue, maybe they could try to address that with the student and sort of walk them through where to find everything. And it's not, I'm not saying it's not being done. It's just that like one teacher will put it at the top of the, update page, and another teacher will post it in the update, or someone will put it in materials. Like, it's just in different places sometimes. And, I just wonder if that's not part of the problem with kids not showing up.
And then I'd like to go to Kelly, who has a question.
So Jennifer, thank you, for bringing that to our attention. And I think if you're hearing from parents, what I would encourage is that they would call their building principal and ask for that principal to work with the teacher. The principals are, like I said, are doing virtual walkthroughs. And I have seen teachers posting their Zooms and their homework in the updates, and some of them will back it up in the materials and post it in several locations. Sometimes you have multiple locations. I have not seen people not posting, anything, but I think if there are some specific concerns, my recommendation, and it's funny, we keep saying, imagine pre-COVID. I know this is crazy, right? But the reality is, if you think back to last year, when we didn't have masks on, we didn't have COVID, if we couldn't find, I don't know, maybe a teacher was supposed to write something on the board, on the smart board when they started in the classroom, and they forgot to post an assignment. I mean, a child the next day might say, hey, Miss Davino, I didn't see the assignment. Where can I find it, right? If there was a continuous not able to find the assignment, we might contact the teacher or the principal and say, hey, I'm having a hard time finding the assignment. Where is that located? And I think for most people at this point, they've kind of gotten in the habit of seeing where teachers post things. I do recognize that it is harder for our 6th through 12th grade students who have 7, 8, 9, 10 teachers, but they have started to recognize that Miss So-and-so posted here and Mr. So-and-so posted here. And I know if I go on the night before, so-and-so has posted their assignments for the next day, but I know that another teacher's not posting till 7 o'clock in the morning. So, but I would recommend for parents who are still finding some challenges or struggles to reach out so that we can make sure that they get the support they need and help their children find those assignments.
Kelly?
A special education question. So we're evaluating everybody's grades. We see that some of our students, special education, we're having more failures.
Right.
Are we changing IEPs, like an ever-changing accommodation for those students? I would think that we would have to, reevaluate and have it like an ever-changing type of situation for them as well. Are we mindful of that at this time?
We're mindful of it. I wouldn't use the word ever-changing.
I don't mean every day,
right.
But what I'm just saying.
There's a process, right?
Yeah,
for special education students, we're always mindful of goals. and seeing how they're doing through the goals and whether or not they're meeting those goals. Our case managers have been working, I think, very hard in monitoring children's progress. And certainly if there were a reason to modify or change an IEP, we would go through the appropriate process to do that. It's a population of students that we're paying very careful attention to right now, because virtual learning is difficult for regular education students. So for children who struggle with additional learning needs, we realize that learning like this is almost impossible for some of them, right? So we are monitoring them closely, though.
Okay. And then if a parent was having a problem with accommodations or what have you, they could just reach out to their caseworker?
Certainly.
Case
Yeah.
manager.
Yeah.
I
And
just,
the case manager plays a role in the flow chart here,
Right.
pretty large.
Natalie?
yeah, I just want to add, I know it's anecdotally because I just have one student in Glen Meadow, but has had not any problems finding links, finding assignments, getting on Zoom calls. She has noted to me that several times she is one of a small amount of students on
Right.
call, on Zooms. She's, my student is pretty consistent, but there is definitely a lack of interaction from other students, but she doesn't have any problems
Right.
finding anything.
Brad?
Karen, you said that the face shields for the teachers didn't come in yet?
No,
Yeah, they weren't face shields. What we ordered for the
Or not,
student.
I'm sorry, the.
Yeah, they're like desk shields.
Yeah.
The student shields are like trifolds that kind of go on the desk. The ones for the teachers are large and kind of stand in front of the teacher. So if the teacher is standing, they can stand, or you can turn it horizontal, right? It can go horizontal or vertical. It's an added PPE barrier between the teacher and the
I didn't,
students.
I heard that they were, some teachers got them today, though. That's what I
I
don't
thought those were
understand.
the.
No, they got the.
The student shields are
shields.
all in. I don't believe the teacher, here was the challenge. There were two different companies, right? Like one was the trifold one, the other one was like just a stand-up one. So that's why they came in at two different times. I thought the student shields are in and have been sent to every building. I do not believe the
No, we
teacher
heard from
shields are
that
in,
company
right?
today that it's not going to
They're
be.
going to be here probably the week of Thanksgiving.
Right.
So now the student shields are only for the students that are doing the hybrid, or did we get enough so that when we all come together, we'll have enough?
Well, we have enough for all students, but certainly we don't expect our virtual learners to come back in the building. I mean, for those children who may be fearful of getting sick, I mean, you know what I mean? We would never expect, we're not going to force them.
Oh, no,
back.
no,
I'm not
I just
sure
mean at that time when it's appropriate, or they feel that.
Yeah,
they're ready to-
I don't know that we'll ever get to that point, quite honestly. I mean, but yeah, we do have.
Well, we will eventually get, but not this
We
school
will
year,
eventually. It
maybe.
might not be this
And
school
hopefully we
year.
won't
Life
need
will
shields.
eventually
Hopefully we will
change
not
it all.
need shields.
I have a question about, Mike, were you going to ask a question?
No, I wasn't done yet, though.
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Brad. Oh, gosh.
Sorry, Brad.
So shields.
In the correspondence that you sent out today, you said that today alone, there was 54 teachers that were out?
Yes.
It was
Do you-
actually 57.
57.
Is that all teachers?
I
Well,
believe
it's
faculty and
leaves
staff.
and medical, no, it's all staff, all staff.
Faculty and staff.
Faculty
So
and
So
staff.
do we have a breakdown as to what schools those teachers were out, the amount, and like a percentage of the faculty that was out, or,
From today,
yeah?
yeah, from today, of the 57 that were out, 24 were from the high school, 6 were from Glen Meadow, and then I'd have to do a breakdown because I didn't finish.
where the other ones
Yeah,
are.
a couple from Cedar Mountain, but I think those are, and again, these are leaves as well as people who are out today. I just want to say, and we did put it in the letter, and this is through no fault of anybody's, within the last 24 hours, 6 staff, 6 people, as you stated, found themselves in quarantine situations, and those 6 folks will be out for the next 14 days.
But they were also from exposed out of school?
Out of
in
school.
Yeah, nobody's exposed.
Nobody
to
is
school.
exposed in school. They called us and said that their doctor has ordered it. They
They have to provide a note saying their doctor has ordered the quarantine because they were exposed to a positive COVID case.
It's ticking up.
Now, at this point in time, it's, I had a parent text me this afternoon once they got the letter, showing signs of frustration, by
That's
saying,
understandable.
that their children are only going to be in school 3.5 days between now and December 7th.
Sure.
So I think, unless you've been living on a rock, I think everybody knows how I feel of what we should be doing with kids in school. At this point in time, with having the virtual week after Thanksgiving, and then you come back for 2 weeks, I mean, is it even worth it at this point in time? Is it worth going, and I'll probably get lambasted by this, but it's nothing new. Is it worth going hybrid until after Christmas? But I would only say it.
Virtual? Did you mean
I'm
hybrid
sorry,
or
virtual until after Christmas. But I would hope that we could do something a little bit more with a step forward in January, other than, we have not gained one step since September 1st. The parents in the district have been told 3 or 4 times that the plan is going to change for those that want to be in school. And, one of the ideas that has been floated around, and I know the lunches are a real issue in the schools, instead of bringing all the kids together for half days, is it possible to do the 2 cohorts as they are, blue and gold, and just let them do full days, Monday, Tuesday, and then a Thursday, Friday for the gold, and try to figure out the lunches with half the kids. And also, I understand at the high school there was this idea to have one lunch period because of the rotating schedule that you guys were going to do or whatever. I think at this point in time, everybody needs to be a little bit more flexible with things.
Sure.
And instead of having worry about that, I mean, if you did half the kids in the high school of a cohort, I think there's about 725 kids up there that are going on a hybrid model. So you're looking at 375 kids per day. If you did 4 lunches, you'd have less than 100 kids in that cafeteria. I don't think that is, insurmountable to do. And it's easier to figure out with half the kids than it is with all the kids.
Right.
And, if that could be kind of worked on and try to get maybe some support from union leadership to try to start moving things forward, rather than, having a struggle every time that we want to do something forward. It gives you 6 weeks to get that accomplished.
Right.
Do you anticipate continuing to work with the reopening committee as
Yes, well,
things-
this was an
this is a
emergency.
rapidly evolving situation.
This is a rapidly evolving situation, and it was an emergency situation today, and we're not happy about it. It's,
Right.
But yes, we have to get back with the reopening committee and
But we also have to work with the union leadership, because the reopening committee is made up of many different people, right? It's stakeholders of parents and union and our nurses and board members who can kind of pop in and out. I know they haven't necessarily been able to be there, but the reopening committee is a great way to kind of vet things. But we do need to work collaboratively with the union to try to move in a direction of providing more for our
Have they
students.
come to the table with any ideas on how to try to move forward, or is it?
I can't speak for, for the union. It wouldn't be my place. I believe the union would probably say the same thing the board would say, that it's the superintendent's decision. I've heard that more times than I care to count in the last, 6 weeks. Which kind of leaves me the lone man out, right? I mean, and no offense to any of my colleague board members, I fully respect your positions in that, the state basically said, yeah, it's the superintendent's decision, right? Board, you don't even have to approve the reopening plan. We went through all of that in August. And the union, again, I don't want to speak for them. I'm sure Vicki has remarks this evening, might say it's an administrative decision. However, I'm always willing to work with the union leadership. I think they know that. I've reached out on many occasions, and Vicki has reached out as well. But we do need to come to an agreement where there is an agreement where we can comfortably move forward. I don't know where that is. I was hoping this last iteration might be it in looking at kind of analyzing our space and providing social distancing where practicable. I know that's really hard for folks. But what I can say is the road back says exactly that. It says social distancing where practicable. So we're not in violation of anything that the governor has ordered for schools to reopen, yet there are still concerns. I think there'll be concerns till there's a vaccine. So it puts everybody in a really, really difficult position. But we're going to keep working at it, Brad, to circle back to what you're saying. I mean, the reality is that we have to, because what we're providing now, although I would say it's working to a degree, it's not enough for our families, it's not enough for our children, and I don't think it's enough for our teachers. I know they care deeply about our children. I know they want the kids here, but they want to do it in a safe way. So it really is a moving target, but we're going to continue to work at it.
24 staff members at the high school to be out on a given day, is that normal, or is there
No.
something going on up
Chuck.
there?
No, the numbers on other days are less. A week ago, which was, let's see, yeah,
So like the week.
Tuesday, November 10th, there was 56 people out. So that was consistent. We've had days where there was 36 people overall out.
The biggest crux, it sounds like, is the faculty that, through no fault of their own, have to quarantine, right?
Yes.
That's, I mean, how could you do some of the things that combining cohorts would require with a substitute teacher in the room?
Well,
Right, like,
that's the problem. Part
right.
of it too is the certification piece, where you can get a sub in. Look, if somebody were out sick, again, pre-COVID, if somebody were out, regardless of what it was for, you could get a sub a day here and a day there, but it is hard to get a sub for 14 days. And now you've got 14 days times, 56 or 57 people kind of all over the district, while we already have a shortage of folks. So it's becoming more and more difficult. We're not the only district in this situation.
Is there anything that we can do to attract more substitutes to the district?
I don't think
Are
so.
we as competitive as we need to
We're
be
the
with
highest
what we're
paid in
paying?
this county.
We are the
We're
highest paid
high,
now?
yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
I don't think so. I think people don't, they can work elsewhere if they so choose, right? In maybe they think a safer situation. I mean, the last thing I would say, and not to berate it, is that I do believe that the schools are the safest places for our children, and maybe I'm in the minority, but in the schools, you have teachers and administrators saying, wash your hands, keep your mask on, don't get too close to that child. And in Acme, you don't have anybody wiping down shopping carts or saying, don't go near that shopper. I mean, the reality is that you have a highly regulated process in our school district, because that's what teachers and administrators do. They make sure that kids and people follow the rules, right? Stay on this side of the hallway. You're too close to, I mean, whether it was that or it was take your hat off. This is just what we do in education. So I do believe that the safest place for our children to be is in the schools. I do think that for some of the schools that were virtual at the beginning of the year, communities, the reason they had very high numbers of COVID was because the children were not in schools and the kids could do whatever they wanted to do. And I don't mean that negatively against our surrounding communities in Sussex
No, but there's an
County.
argument to be made there.
Yeah.
You know,
I think our pandemic response people and our custodians are doing a stellar job in keeping our facility clean. They work very hard. I mean, if you walk in, and not that anybody can visit, but for the faculty who
You
works
run
here,
your hand along the rail and they're right behind you.
I mean, you can't touch anything without them wiping
Yeah,
down
they're
like
terrific.
immediately.
Terrific.
And the fact that we haven't had any COVID, knock on wood, it is a testament to those people that are working hard and people following the rules in our buildings. And I'm very appreciative of our faculty and our administration for making sure that we follow for our students that are here. It's not easy to wear masks all day, right? If you're a hybrid student and you're in school, it stinks to wear a mask for 4 hours, but you get through it. You know you have to, because you're protecting yourself and your classmates and your teachers, and you go home and you take your mask off, So, anyway, I'm going on.
I'd like to circle back with a question to the trauma-informed coordinators, because we are investing a lot of grant resources in this, and I do think if used really well, can be a really valuable resources for some of our kids. The flow chart is great, and it helps to really understand how this is being utilized. But the
Those
start of the
teams
flow chart
produce
is a teacher contact. Are there other mechanisms that we're using to deploy the trauma-informed coordinators? Are the building principals looking at data now that we have a marking period of data to see how, student A is doing this marking period compared to a year ago? Seeing if there's large fall-offs for that student, just so that it's not just on the teacher to come forward, that we have others looking and making sure that we're not missing any holes.
Yeah, well, that's the end of the first marking period, and that is
Yeah.
always the time where the concerns come out.
Okay.
Right, so I think that that's an edict that can come from us to our principals and building administrators saying, it's time to check those grades and see where we are and make contact.
Right, okay.
I mean, I would encourage parents too, if they don't know that we have additional support in the schools. I mean, and many parents have already sent emails to teachers saying, I'm trying to get my kid on a Zoom, or I'm trying to get my kid to come to your class, or I can't get my child to do whatever. Do you have any suggestions? So perhaps if parents have additional need and they want to reach out, the trauma-informed coordinators may be able to provide some strategies, whether it's organizational strategies for the child or supportive strategies for parents at home, to help children know, the night before you go to bed, check Schoology. In the morning, check Schoology. Make a list. I mean, I know these are things that are kind of common for us as adults, but remember, these are skills that children learn while they're in school. And when they're not here, they're not learning those skills. And if their parents are working, it's a gap of structure that children are missing, right? So if parents have need, they should reach out to the administrators who can direct them to the trauma-informed coordinators in each school.
Are there other questions on the reopening plan at this point in time?
I did have one. I have a question about the shields. I'm thinking about how they physically are, but I'm also thinking about at the high school, the desks, you have the chair connected
Yes.
to a little tiny desk.
Yes,
So how would you put a shield on that desk? I'm sure with the little ones, because you have the chair and the actual big
Yes,
desk,
that's
you
true.
can lay it out,
Right.
and it's very nice. But at the high school, the majority of the desks are those little tiny chair and
With the
little tiny
slanted
desks.
desk. Yeah.
So how would you put a shield on a little tiny desk that
Right.
if you're trying to get in and out, it's all connected?
so I want to give kudos to Mr. Demsek. He was looking at scouring all the buildings and looking for the flatter desks that were wider, because the smaller shield just fits on the desk, and if it's tilted, it really doesn't work really well. So he was looking for more of those. We were talking about putting tables in the cafeteria, so he sent me a picture of what that looks like. We have talked about other rooms and using tables as much as possible, and it's something that we still have to solve effectively, because the smallest one that they make still just sits on that tilted
Yeah, on the very edge.
one-piece desk, and it's not as effective. I mean, it'll be effective block, but it's going to be
Right.
something
Well,
that
it's
the
also
students
just
are
a
going
fall, or, yeah, I mean, those desks are itty bitty.
to. Right, right.
It
So I
is-
was
it
talking
is
to,
Especially for our biggest students, I never
Yeah.
understood
I was
that.
talking to Mr. Storms about clips and possibly clipping it in.
Thank you.
So,
Can I
yeah.
They have school tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question, Teresa. We are still looking at the most effective ways to keep those trifold screens kind of on the desk without kids bump. And it's gonna happen. They're gonna knock them over. They're, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just another piece of furniture to work around kind of thing. But we are continuing to look at resources to make sure that they are as stable as possible, during the day while kids are getting in and out of desks and teachers are trying to teach.
Yeah, I mean, if they're not connected, I get it with the little ones, but when you get up into
Right.
the high
Yeah,
school, just,
yeah.
and I have one other question. Since there's a new schedule, our last schedule, and for parents to opt vice versa, hybrid to virtual, virtual to hybrid, was
Yes.
October 23rd.
Yes.
Is there maybe going to be another day now that parents are given as a cutoff? Like, what if parents want to change or move?
Well,
Well,
that's
we
what,
just
that's
said-
what we're going to call
Yeah,
them.
they're gonna get personal phone calls tomorrow. Anybody who.
No, I mean, let's say, I'm sorry, a new parent decides, like this schedule comes out, the schedule came out today, and they
Yes.
said, oh no, this doesn't work for us. Like,
Right.
I'm going to work more, or whatever it is, now my child has to go virtual,
Right.
and I'm gonna take them to grandma's,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm just thinking of something. Last time we set up a date of October 23rd,
Right.
so
Right.
what happens now?
Now is if anybody has a concern, they should call us tomorrow. I mean,
Okay.
I hate to say it. I mean, I
Well, that's
actually.
why I'm asking, just so
Yeah, I mean, the
people
letter
know.
went out this afternoon. I received an email, this evening.
How
from
much of a flip
from
did you
parent.
get?
I'm sorry?
How much of a flip did you get?
Well, we had more people, we had
Virtual.
about it was 3 to 1 for families who wanted to come back to school versus versus parents who were
So
sending their
was it
kids virtual.
50 kids, 75 kids? What?
I think
Okay,
it
I'll
was
give you the
90.
exact numbers.
Oh, sorry, Chuck has.
No, that's okay. At the high school, 22 to virtual, from going hybrid to virtual, and 48 from virtual to hybrid.
So it's not insurmountable to have the administrators call those 70 parents? And
No,
ask them
the
if they
office
want-
staff, that's what the office
Right,
staff.
They're gonna do,
Yeah.
okay.
Glen Meadow was 8 to virtual and 25 back into the building. Lounsbury Hollow was 8 to virtual, 17 back into the building. Rolling Hills, it was 1 to virtual, 17 back into the building.
I figured it was-
Cedar Mountain, 1 to virtual, 9 back into the building.
Thanks, Chuck.
Okay, thanks, Chuck. So then what happens is if a family right now decides that the new schedule doesn't
Right.
work, to contact.
Yeah, they
Like
should
tomorrow.
contact, yeah, they should
Right.
contact their building administrator tomorrow. And you know what, actually, Teresa, when we put out our blast tomorrow, that we said was gonna be one of those text message e-blast kind of thing that says, you know, if your student is on the gold team, please do not send them to school on Monday, the schedule has changed, here's the link. You know, if you need any assistance, please contact us, and we'll make sure that it goes out tomorrow so that people
Yeah, I
have,
just wasn't sure if it'd be like another official date, you
we
know.
really
that's
don't
why-
have time.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's fine. I was just curious, so we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Anything else on the reopening plan at this point in time? No. Okay, item 2.
The next item on the agenda for discussion is public participation for hybrid meetings.
Okay.
As, I'll just give a quick background, and then Justin, I'm going to kick it over to you. As the board knows, and I think the members of our public know also, when we became kind of a hybrid board back in March, we were doing things fully virtually at that time. Then as we moved into, I don't know, probably August, we started to have these hybrid meetings where some people were on Zoom, like we have Ms. Pellet zooming in from home tonight, and the rest of us in person. You know, we decided, I think, that we probably needed to circle back to some of our procedures regarding kind of the hybrid meeting format. And I know that we have some guidance from our board attorney. Justin, you want to
Sure.
speak on behalf?
So, just for members of the public, as I know, like, we're not the only district that's been doing hybrid meetings. We were fully virtual for some time, right? And the state, punctual as ever, about 8 months later, now has some guidance for us on how we should be doing this, which is a little different than what we're doing now. So if you guys saw in the email from Nathania, there was an attachment from the Department of Community Affairs. And the board is going to have to make a decision as to whether we want to continue to even do hybrid meetings and what that would entail in terms of the threshold the state is setting for public participation, or if we want to go to fully in-person board meetings, which would allow us to continue to host our meetings as we always have, you know, and just do the in-person public participation. The efforts on the board, in lieu of state regulation on the topic, has been always in the effort of transparency and including the public. So we allowed members of the public to submit comments through the live stream chat as a way to continue to participate in public participation. The state is now saying that's not good enough. If you have a remote public meeting, which is they're defining as any gathering over electronic communication equipment attended by all or some board members, then you need to do the following. We would have to allow for members of the public to attend by audio or video. So that would probably be through some sort of Zoom mechanism. In addition to that, because some may not have internet access, we would also have to allow a call-in option, some sort of a telephonic audio option for members of the public to both hear and then participate during public participation portions of the meeting.
Like a conference call type of option?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, we would no longer use the YouTube live stream chat. You know, we would have to completely switch over to really a new platform and a completely new way of hosting our meetings.
Well, we can still use YouTube live stream just without the chat.
Yes, yeah. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. And then in advance of the remote public meeting, The local public body shall also allow public comments to be submitted by electronic mail and in written letter form to the official responsible for creating the meeting agenda by a reasonable deadline. So there's a huge like threshold for how they're defining, compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act if we continue to operate in a hybrid meeting format. So I'll turn it over to everybody else to see where they stand.
So can I just clarify, so if we have a meeting as we're having today, a hybrid meeting, we have to have all of those mechanisms in place, a conference call option,
Yeah.
an opportunity to write in a letter or a comment prior to the meeting, so we'd have to have a way to publicize that. We would have to have a Zoom link sent out.
Essentially, yes. Like, they members of the public may attend only as a viewer on the Zoom, perhaps.
But they would be like a little box. They would,
Right. I mean, it wouldn't be like, let's say Jen and Mark were virtual. It wouldn't be Jen, Mark, and then 100 people in the public, like all their squares. It'd just be, we would be the participants, they would be viewing, I
Gotcha.
imagine. I don't
But
know.
if they want to make a comment,
At that point, we then need to bring people in to make the comment.
have like a chat room
Kind
type
of.
of, yeah, Matt would have to coordinate
Right.
that.
Right.
And we'd also have to have an open conference call line where people could call in.
Yes, and Matt says that Zoom has that feature as well.
Right, Zoom has a built-in teleconferencing feature, so just the same way Jen dialed in via computer, someone can pick up their cell phone and literally call in.
Right.
so the question I would have is, let's say we go to, what is it, Orange, the next phase or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
And we obviously don't know what EOs will come out or anything
Right.
like that. But suppose that happens, well, we don't know. Will we still be able to meet in person? Or do we have to go all remote? And then if we have to go all remote, then we still need all those things in
Then we would need
place.
to do it.
So, I mean, to me, I think it'd be, as of November, what's today? 12th? That we just have in-person meetings like we did before March.
Until
And-
we go orange, until
Right,
we're
right.
virtual.
If
Right.
that happens.
And if that happens, and then we'll shut the chat room off. And, there's a little backstory here, that there was some stuff that happened in the chat room at the last meeting that was
Inappropriate.
inappropriate.
Very
And I appreciate some members of the public actually stepping in and trying to squelch that. But it's not fair to Matt to sit there and try to screen stuff. I don't think it's fair to Matt to ask him to approve stuff to be put up, because then we get into a, First Amendment issue. I think it's better to go back to February and do what we were doing in February. There's a lot of districts that don't even live stream their meetings. So we're already, ahead of a lot of districts like that.
When you say February, Brad, when you say go back to February, which is what, live meetings?
Just
or-
live meetings with a live stream, no chat.
And then,
Oh, okay.
yeah, without
Yeah,
the chat room.
Yeah, because doing it that way, we're still in compliance.
Exactly. It's the,
If all members
if all members attend.
We
attend.
cannot have a hybrid
you
meeting.
can't.
We have to have a
I see.
complete
Right.
Yeah.
in-person meeting.
Right.
Okay, and, look, I mean, I do think that when we originally started to, when we were gonna bring the kids back to school, the students back to school in September, I think there was, there were some concerns from the public about kind of having a hybrid option, for our board, when we were having students in. But I do think that the hybrid makes sense when we're in this state of flux. But I certainly understand when you want to be compliant with the Open Public Meetings Act, we want to make sure that we're offering our public the opportunity to engage in discussion, or at least ask appropriate questions, right, during public session.
Something to be mindful of that, this is anecdotal from the board attorney, Nathania. When I spoke to her about this, she said, one of the districts she works for decided to go completely in person, which I'm not necessarily against at this stage, because I do think that these limitations placed by the state are a little difficult to achieve.
cumbersome.
But just for the purposes of the story, they went completely in person.
For their
and
meetings.
For their meetings, and then two of their members were exposed to somebody, and then had to quarantine for 14 days. And then, you know, those members missed 2 meetings because they couldn't attend hybrid. So,
If it's timing.
Because it happened to be the 14
it happened to be,
days and the 2 meetings.
yeah, so, you know, that would be the reality, that if a member had to quarantine for any reason, they wouldn't be able to join us like they can now, so there's a trade-off.
But
also
I think our
I'm in-
policy,
I'm in favor of the in-person, but not to be a pessimist, but I do think it's a strong reality that we may have to go remote again. So
Yeah.
I think we should do in-person, but not because we don't think we might be able to meet the bar of the hybrid meetings, because I think we're going to have to meet that probably at some point between now and March anyway.
Sure.
I agree. So I guess let me ask a follow-up question to Mark's train of thought. Does that mean that live meeting, I guess, is what I'm hearing, right, perhaps without the virtual hybrid option, but should we, the district, be on virtual, for example, the week after Thanksgiving, perhaps the week after a Christmas holiday, perhaps multiple weeks, depending on a shutdown? At that time, would we be looking at a fully virtual platform for the meeting? I would say yes, right?
Yeah,
That would
everyone would be
depend.
prepared to do that.
I think we should be prepared for
I
it.
think we should be prepared for it, but
Okay.
I don't think just because the school is 100% virtual means that we have to do a virtual
Oh.
meeting either.
Right.
Okay, okay.
I think if an executive order came out where it said no gatherings of more than, like, 12 people here, well, actually has to be 12 plus an audience,
Right,
right?
right,
In
right.
order for it to be open, so
Right.
if there's an EO that comes out that's too restrictive
Yeah.
for an in-person meeting, then I think we go to hybrid meeting, or, hybrid meeting, or a virtual meeting, one or the other.
Okay.
Right.
Chuck, were you
Now,
gonna say
I would assume also that since the state has now come out with guidance, that probably Strauss Esme was gonna come out with a policy on it, correct?
Yeah, so I don't know the answer about Strauss Esme. What was interesting is Nathaniel said the state kind of backed into this. So normally they, they set out a policy, my understanding, or regulation on an issue, and then once it's approved, it's publicized and sent out to districts, or to the community. This, they publicized it on September, the very end of September, but they said, but it's not really gonna be official for a while, we'll let you, like, it's probably gonna be official end of November. So, like, it's just been a little haphazard.
It's not
but-
surprising.
Yeah, so, so this regulation goes into effect, November 18th, actually, next Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
So
we
before our
got- we got
Thursday meeting.
5 days.
Yeah, so we have, tonight to figure out what we wanna do.
For next week?
For next week.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and next week, we know that our schedule will be a hybrid schedule for our families, right?
Right.
Not
So-
next week.
I'm sorry.
Next week's hybrid, yeah.
Next week would be hybrid, right, blue, gold. So then what does that leave for our meeting for next week?
Well, I think that it will take more than a few days to come up with a platform where we can achieve all of
Yeah.
these metrics for the state and do so successfully. So I personally think that for next week, we should probably go to an in-person meeting for the board while our IT department and administration works on a plan for how we can meet all of these regulations and remain in compliance. How does everybody else feel?
I agree.
I agree.
Makes sense.
I think it's fair. Yeah.
Teresa, Kelly, Mark, Jen? Anybody opposed to that?
I'm just looking over to Matt.
I can make anything.
He's confident.
We know you can.
I'm Matt Shea.
He's
We
confident.
know you can.
Okay.
Do we have any guidance about rescinding our policy?
Yeah, so our policy, as we know, state regulation trumps policy.
That's true.
So we should rescind it, though. So I'd say on the agenda for next week, we'll have a motion to, do we need a first and second when you're removing policy or just implementing?
I don't know, because I've never had
It
I've never
was,
known a policy to get
it's an
removed.
amendment also, isn't it? Like a
Yeah, but I'm sure the
regulation
mechanism
A or something.
to eliminate it would be the
Right, so
same.
that needs to be on the agenda for
Yeah.
next week.
But the regulation will trump it by then anyway. So,
Right, that's true.
And then wouldn't we have a policy that follows the regulation, I would?
yes, and
So
then we
then
should
we'd
have
have
a
the first,
policy,
second
to
read.
Brad's question about Strauss Esme,
Correct.
that
Spells it out.
spells this out.
So next week, we want to take a look at that amendment.
Yeah, and, we need to remove
We
it.
have to
So
Well, next
we
week,
need
it's
to-
either going to be a first reading to remove it,
Right.
or a rescission
Just
of
one
it, one
motion
of
Yeah.
the
to
two.
move it, yeah.
Whatever Nathania advises.
I'm not
Right.
sure. I think we need a first and a second, but don't quote me.
Okay.
So I think it's any action you're taking for policy or for regulation, but we'll find out for
Yeah,
sure.
I'm writing down the question first or second.
Yeah,
All right, so then for the time being,
live meeting next week.
will be a fully live meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other discussion? We're good on that one?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to continue. So the next item on your agenda says esports. I know Kelly is so excited to talk about this. So I'll start, I guess I'll tee it up a little bit, and then I know Chuck and Matt will help me a little. So, you know, we get lots of different emails and lots of different information. So I came across an email from the Electric Gaming Federation, and I watched a webinar, and I thought it was really interesting. And then I asked for Matt and Chuck and Vinny and Russ and I to sit and have a conference call with a gentleman through the Electronic Gaming Federation, just to give you some background. This actually started at the college level, and the way that esports has begun was to foster relationships and build bridges between high schools and colleges, because many colleges and universities now have esports programs. There are scholarships available, and there are recruitment opportunities available for colleges to recruit students who've been part of an esports gaming federation league. The introduction started with the University of Delaware, and they saw, I guess, that there was a void at the high school level. So the gentleman who is kind of in charge was a high school coach and was a teacher in New Jersey, and they decided to be part of creating this esports program. It's an opportunity for students that don't always take advantage of sports or drama, but they still get to be in a competitive environment. It's for children who may or may not have found their passion. There's a really powerful educational component that's connected to esports. If we wanted to explore it as more than just a co-curricular league, it is connected to some CTE things, but we're not at that point yet. The opportunity to have esports, it has a curriculum that's actually approved by the U.S. Department of Education. There's a career development component. There's actually a health and wellness component of what they do. And they also have not just competitions for games, and I'll let Matt probably talk about that, about the different leagues in a minute, but they also have opportunities for students to broadcast, you know, the actual tournament styles. So I think it was Super Smash Brothers, Overwatch, and Rocket League, is that correct? I don't even know what those mean.
Sure.
So Matt knows. I just know it's what kids do. Shame on me. I'm showing my age, right? There was a time I would have known what that means. And what's happening in most schools is that, you know, they're basically practicing a few days a week after school. They get time with an advisor and a coach. Most schools will involve everybody. You can have a varsity, JV, and a freshman squad. And they coordinate the schedules. You can have a shoutcaster, which is their broadcaster, I guess, who actually broadcasts as opposed to coordinates the opposing to play or to compete. You do need parent permission slips, and there are some fees associated. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I want to ask Matt to fill in the gaps a little bit on some of the gaming, and then we can talk more about technology and some other things. So, Mr. Shea. Are you going to show us one of the games?
I am not.
Oh, darn it.
Just so everyone can hear me out. So, just if I wanted to backpedal one step. If you're like,
Please.
what the heck is esports? What are they even talking about? So in 1993, yours truly was the Nintendo Star Fox champion.
Matt,
But does it still fit? Does it still fit?
It does
Matt,
not.
you're going to need to show the jacket on the camera so everybody gets the full effect.
Go so that people can see you.
So it is true.
Nice.
Nintendo Star Fox, 1993.
His wife wasn't that.
Good job.
It does not fit as well as it used to. And so, like, esports really has been around for a long time, but recently it's become so big that now there's really a whole industry behind it, a lot of money behind it. Blizzard, Activision, EA Sports started their own Overwatch league, the Owl League. And there's 8 professional teams. Colleges are paying full ride scholarships for esports players. It is really kind of crazy. The last year's Super Bowl had 99 million viewers. The 2018 League of Legends Championships had 99 million viewers. So it is as big as the Super Bowl globally.
Wow.
So that like, you know, if you're like, who plays Overwatch? Well, right now there's about 45 million players that play Overwatch and even more that watch it. So it is really becoming a very huge thing. As a weird side note, 2 years ago I was at the ISTE conference in Philadelphia. It feels weird now to talk about conferences. I can't even imagine being around, you know, people. But Acer had an esports booth set up, and they had kids, kids coming in from their different sports teams, from high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, playing head to head. And I got to meet a student that was in 4th grade. He took a year off because he was so big and was going on the circuit to win millions of dollars as a 4th grader.
Oh my gosh.
And was a professional gamer. So it's really kind of a crazy thing. For kids like me who are introverted, and I know it seems weird. I prepared this. I was ready to speak about it tonight. But are introverted. They're not going to be the football player star. They're not going to go be in drama club. They like to game, and they're good at it. And this is a spot for them to feel included. When I won this, I suddenly had this confidence boost that I can do anything I want to do, and then I did. So just like sports and activities and clubs, for some students, this is a real opportunity for them to do something that they excel at and participate in school when normally they might not. It's really an interesting opportunity. And what I've heard other schools that are doing it and doing it well, and we're certainly not prepared to dive this deep into it, but they've prepared a curriculum behind it, whether it's a CTE program. I've heard some schools that it's to participate in the after-school part with the video games, you have to do the social media marketing class or
game design,
social justice class. Like, you have to learn more about the industry. And just like robotics, how not all kids are building the robot. Some are making the website to publicize the robot, and some are marketing that, and some are trying to get donations. That's the same for these clubs. So you have the shoutcasters that help learn how to live stream it. You can have others build a website and do the social media around it. So it's it can really encompass a lot of different types of students. And really would be a good opportunity, and kind of is the future. So
Yeah.
And it's a team sport. It's not just an individual sport.
right. So there's the different levels. So Super Smash Brothers is a 1-player. So it's really you are by yourself. I'm sure you'd practice with other teammates, but you play 1-on-1. Rocket League is 3v3, and then Overwatch is 6v6.
Right.
And so you could we've got our varsity team, a JV team, and a freshman team. There could be that many players that play.
I mean, it's huge at DeSales. They have like all, like the B team, the A team, and then they have to if somebody's not going to be there, they
you
switch
have
them out.
alternates, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's very interactive with other students that you might not normally meet.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm very excited about it, and they get cool shirts, and they get cool all this merchandise, and they give laptops. You can win laptops from companies that want you to do this.
Yeah, the
esports.
sponsorship.
They want
and
to sponsor.
crazy laptops, like thousands of dollars.
Would it
Kelly's
be
like doing an
accessible-
infomercial.
I'm so excited about it because I think that we could get this cool merchandise thing, with our
We're going to put
Our
student life
logo.
right on it.
I think it's,
Quick question, would it be accessible to all students, or is it
Yeah.
expensive to be able to participate? Do you need the console or the?
Yeah, do you need an
So it's
Xbox?
interesting. We talked about that, and certainly between our engineering computers, the computer science computers, they're very robust, and kids could jump on them today. I still have some students that are like, I'm not playing on your garbage $2,000 computer. I've got a $3,000 one at home. It's kind of funny, but really it's, we can provide all the equipment.
Okay.
A lot of kids have it at home.
It's a good
The
start.
Super Smash Brothers is only Nintendo Switch, so we'd have to buy some Nintendo Switches
Now-
if we want to do Super
we could
Smash
get
Brothers.
people to donate those switches.
We
Although
could.
they were kind of hard to find
They're
just recently,
expensive,
but
yeah.
we could get them.
They are hard to find, but it
Yeah.
depends. I think the purpose of bringing this forward, and certainly want to generate, hear the conversation, was just to find out if it was something the board, we haven't gone out and recruited students yet. We haven't gone out and talked, this is the first time anybody's hearing of it. We talked to the board about these things first. If it's something, once we talk about this a little bit more, if it's something we feel the students might be interested in. I think the spring season is in March, so, obviously, we're not looking to do this now, but.
But you need to start filling a
Is this
stipend.
high
Yeah.
school or middle school?
It's
or-
it's high school.
It's high school only, okay.
It's high school only. Oh, it fits.
Oh,
It
look at
fits.
Don't ask me to zip it up, I won't do that, but
It
That's
fits.
okay.
Very
I still
nice.
got it.
I mean, I do believe there's a per student fee per season for the Electronic Gaming Federation. Of course, there's a stipend, but I think it was a per student fee per season. I don't think there was another fee, but I'm not certain now, because I have in my notes.
There's a couple of different gaming federations, and this one did not make you pay anything additional for like referees. I think in a lot of cases, you don't need transportation because the kids play over the internet, so like, in some cases, you might want to drive another school
Right.
to have some excitement and have them play head-to-head in the same room, but in COVID times, they can
Yeah, we
play,
can't.
conceivably, kids can play from home.
But next year, we could host something really big.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt, I think that you really hit the nail on the head, that this is a program that could reach students that we may not traditionally succeed at reaching. And as a public school, I think that's one of our jobs. So I really think it's a phenomenal program. And beyond it, I think that we say every year that our stipends and our programs that we have in place should evolve and change based on student interest. And if this is something that student interest can drive, I think that that's phenomenal.
It's a really well-organized league, and our virtual students could do this, blindfolded. I mean, this is something that everybody could absolutely be involved with.
I like the connection to the education and the connection to, I didn't realize there were college scholarships and recruitment efforts. I was shocked when they were starting to throw out names of colleges and universities that actively recruit students from electronic gaming leagues and high schools into colleges and universities. I just didn't know it existed. So I think it's a great gateway for students who maybe are introverted, who aren't really sure, are they college material, but now they have that confidence boost to say, yeah, I could go to school to develop maybe another facet of gaming, whether it's designing the platform, or it's the web base, or it's the merchandise, or the marketing, or the shoutcasting, or whatever. It's an industry I really just wasn't aware of, so.
It's a whole new sector of opportunities and jobs that are coming out. I have a student from my former district. I've been in education long enough. I had him when he was in 7th grade. Now he's like 20-something. And he's a YouTube celebrity accountant. So for those YouTubers that hit big and make millions of dollars, he seeks them out to help them manage their finances and personal planning. So he's a YouTube financial planner.
Wow.
Did that job exist 10 years ago?
No.
So it's just really a different time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of these jobs.
So do any members of the board have any issue with the administration bringing forward a recommendation for what
Like a
this would
formal
need?
proposal.
A formal
Yeah, I mean,
proposal.
tonight was just a discussion.
No, we should do it. And we should get some donations going.
If anything, we found out that Kelly become an infomercial host.
I
Because I
know.
was waiting for her to say, but wait, there's more.
I want to be a shoutcaster.
About the morning, and you know that the kids are playing this whether they come here and play it or not. But
That's true.
Overwatch is called a hero shooter. It's a first perspective shooter. So there is shooting. It's really not a bloody game. It's almost more cartoony. Super Smash Bros. There's one-on-one and they're fighting. And again, it's Nintendo, so there's no blood. It's not graphic. But you have to be okay with that and approve that. But again, I bet 75% of our kids already have these games at home and play it, and maybe it's like, but I just want to throw that out there.
Right,
that,
right.
You can have
That's
someone
fair.
come in and say, wait, Overwatch, that's a really violent game.
Yeah.
Not
Are
compared to
they-
Call of Duty and some of these other-
Are they rated mature?
Ooh.
I think they're TV 14. Yeah, I don't think they're mature. They might, but we
Okay.
can find out, Natalie, that's a
Well,
fair
because
question.
it's
Yeah.
beyond that, there
Certainly.
could be sexual situations, language, violent,
Right,
so
right,
if
right.
it's inappropriate.
I'll double check the ratings. The Rocket League, it's cars playing soccer.
I Googled it, I could, it's cars playing soccer,
So there's
yeah.
really nothing wrong with that.
And the other one's Mario Brothers, so I don't know, they're pretty.
Well, I'm
Okay.
super excited.
All right.
So we're going to get our team together, right? How
You're
do
going to
we
be the
start?
captain.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to play all these games.
No, I'm not a good
I'm
gamer.
just kidding.
I'm just a promoter. That's
right,
all.
thank
I
you,
am.
Matt.
Just kidding. Thanks,
Thank
Matt.
you.
A new
I would
job.
just hope that, we would gauge interest, identify
Yes.
potential, interested faculty stipends before you go developing a curriculum.
Yep,
Because
Absolutely.
obviously in a financial situation, you
yep.
would need to have faculty support for those courses
Sure.
and things, so.
And T-shirts.
And T-shirts. And expensive computers.
Kelly always goes right to the,
I like the merchandise.
I know, but Dr. Peak, I mean, I agree. I mean, obviously, the next steps for Dr. McKay and I and my colleagues is really to see if there is student interest, faculty interest to, be the advisor, to be the coach, if you will, of people, for the students to participate in a league like this.
We have in the past also audited the stipend list. I don't know if you remember when we did that and decided
Spring, we
things
did that.
that no longer were popular and maybe replace those. I'm not guaranteeing that, but we could take a look.
That should be done almost annually anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
See where we are, right? I think,
Okay.
Justin, that's what you were pointing out.
Yes.
Good.
Thank
Next
you.
item?
Yes.
So the next item on the agenda is the dog park, and even though it is under me, I'm going to kick this one over to Mr. Annunziata regarding a previous
Sure.
discussion we had here at the board table.
Sure, so about probably 2 months ago, the board spoke about when we were renewing our lease to the township for the land that the dog park is situated on, about reaching out to the township and seeing if they would be interested in formally acquiring that land from the school district. We're not in the real estate business, we're in the business of educating students. This is land that the township uses in a very useful way for our community between the dog park and the community garden. So I've gone ahead and drafted a letter to potentially send to the mayor's office on behalf of the board, CCing the town council and the members of the board. I'd like to get feedback from the board on the content and tone of the letter and determine whether they're comfortable with proceeding to see if the township is interested at all. Kelly?
Well, I did read the letter. I think that's fine. I don't know that the town would be
Sure.
interested, but I do agree that to facilitate a lease and have that be a reminder every single year,
Right.
I think that that's something that we wouldn't want our Board of Ed to spend time on. So if the town does want to purchase it, happy day, that's
Yeah.
what I think.
Exactly. Anybody have any opposition or?
I agree. I'd be surprised, but I think we should not try.
Exactly.
Okay.
What happens if the town doesn't express interest?
If the town does not express interest, the board needs to decide if they want to continue to lease the land every year to the township, or if we would like to go out for a bid to try to sell or lease it to someone else. If we are, or sell it, if we're truly interested in no longer owning that land. Because the reality is that the township is the only one that we can communicate with directly, one-on-one, about purchasing an asset, such as land or a building, without having to go through a bid process. So this is a first step. If the board is serious, and the board has expressed in the past that they're not interested in holding on to land and building assets that are not necessary to hold on to, then, the township is the first step in that process.
So should that be mentioned in the letter? Or do you think that's inferred? Maybe I missed it, but I didn't think that was actually stated in the letter. And is it a buildable lot, by the way? Like, can people build on this?
That was part of the conversation, that it is a community asset, and we would, our intent would be to keep it in the community in a way that would keep the dog park and the community garden by offering it to the town. If we were to pursue other options, then we have no, say over what that
Right.
new real estate owner would do with that property.
Right. If the town says we don't want to lease it, we don't want to purchase it from you, and the board says, well, we're not interested in leasing it, anymore, we don't want to own this land anymore, then anybody could come in and bid for the land if we went out to bid.
The only thing.
Right, so I just want, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something, but I just wondered if maybe we need to make it clear to the town that, you know, please do buy it, because otherwise we may need to, I mean, I don't know if that, you know, just felt like that wasn't really clear in the letter, but again, maybe I missed it, I read it.
You could add
We could add something in the last sentence of the third paragraph, like prior to exploring other options.
Yeah, I think you're clear.
Yeah,
with
just
our
so they
findings.
understand, you know, please consider this, other, you know, it may not be an option to just continue leasing it. Maybe it is an option, but just so they
Right.
understand why we're asking, I don't know.
I think there's a couple things we've got to remember. One, the taxpayers already bought this land once. So if we're asking the town to buy it, we're asking the taxpayers to buy it again. I think that's something needs to be considered. Secondly, we also have to remember that the solar panels for
Yeah.
Lounsbury and Rolling Hills are on half of that property. So if we are going to look at other options to selling it, we do have to subdivide it if we
do.
want to keep those solar panels in.
Right.
Or enter into a lease agreement with whoever buys the property for the solar panels for the, however long they're going to be around, so.
Right.
There's some hurdles on both sides that I think we need to look at.
I completely agree. You know, this is meant to get the conversation started with the town now, as opposed to, you know, what I've seen happen the last 3, years is that we get to September and we're like, oh, we have a lease we need to review, renew with the town. And then everybody's like, should we have that land? Should we sell it? Oh, it's a little late because we have to renew that lease because it's expiring in a month,
Yeah.
So I think we should have the conversation now to see what the
Totally
options
agree.
are.
Absolutely.
All right, so I will go forward with making that small adjustment and then send this and see if there's any feedback.
Good.
Thanks, Justin.
Next item under discussion is snow days. So for the record, Dr. McKay and I went to battle over this. Nobody won, we compromised, because that's what good colleagues do. So I like snow days. Dr. McKay's the Grinch, no, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so I did.
What's
put
a
out-
snow day? We're virtual.
I did put out an email to the board, October 30th. Ironically, we had snow well, I don't know about all of you, but in Highland Lakes, we had snow. But we definitely had snow in parts of Vernon. And because now we have access to virtual learning for all students and all teachers, and the state has not designated that we cannot virtually learn on inclement weather days, I'm recommending that we're using a combination of virtual days and true snow days or true inclement weather days moving forward. So what I had proposed to the board in an email was that if there were significant weather, and this is where the state does back us up, things like power outages, a state of emergency by the governor, intermittent access or no access to Wi-Fi, then that would be an inclement weather day. That would be a full snow day, no virtual learning whatsoever, because how could we require virtual learning if there are massive power outages, lack of accessibility to Wi-Fi, or to the necessary tools for our teachers and students? That wouldn't be fair. On the other hand, if we had a day like what we had on October 30th, which is kind of minor accumulation, it was slushy in parts of the district, but we did have access to power and Wi-Fi, it might have been considered an inclement weather day with virtual learning, so that we can maximize the 180 days and have our days count and try to get to the end of the school year. Right now, our final day of school is Tuesday, June 15th. The goal, and this would just be a goal, would be to use no more than 3 actual snow days this school year, so that the last day of school would be Friday, June 18th. I know that we always, even when we've called snow days in the past, we always look at how bad is the weather, what day does that put us on in June, how many days after the end of the school year does that put us, how much does that impact the summertime for families. So the same type of practices would be put into place for snow days for this year. We would utilize a combination of inclement weather virtual days partnered with true snow inclement weather or closing emergencies when we feel it necessary. So that's where we are. And I think it was prompted by that strange weather on October 30th. But I mean, let's face it, it's Vernon and it snows. So
I love snow days, though.
Me too.
And I love when the kids put the little spoons under their pillows and like hope the
I
next
never
time
even
she
heard of
all
that
the
before.
This is
treasure.
all the things that
Ice
she
cubes
talked
in
about.
the
She talked
toilet,
about all of
pajamas
the-
inside out. Come
like
on.
there's something exciting about that. The night before they're doing all that, and you wake up in the morning and it's like, woo, snow day. You know, like I don't know. I think
Well,
it's fun.
and the other thing too is that considering everything that we've all been through, right, with COVID, and last year we taught right through spring break because we wanted to get to the end of the year. And I remember the reason why, and I was behind it. We said we're going to go straight through because maybe in June we won't be under lockdown anymore, and we can breathe a little and live a little. And who knew that it would still be going on? So I do think that there are times when everybody needs a break, and that includes both teachers and students and parents. In the finding the links and the getting on the Zoom and the access and those little surprises are maybe little gifts in the middle of the winter when we can get kids out with their big snowsuits on and again play in the snow 3 tons.
I think what would
Yeah,
work
but-
well
it would be nice.
is if, sometimes up here we do have multi-day events that, will
Yes.
start on, at nighttime, go through the next
Yes.
day, and then we have a delay the next day. Maybe to ensure that the kids do get a break is on that first day of the event, just, we could lose power at 10 o'clock in the morning. Maybe just make it some sort of standard operating procedure. That day will be a snow day, and then you'll reevaluate going forward from that. That gives a little bit of a break for the kids that they can count on. They can still put their spoons under their pillows or wear their pajamas inside out or whatever you were
I
talking
love
about.
that.
I know nothing about.
How fun is that?
But, we do have, there's been times where we've had a snowstorm that we've been out 3 or 4 days up here. And that way, at least we can continue on with some
Yeah.
sort of, structure after that.
I think it's a good
Yeah.
thought. The other thing too is that just a reminder for everybody is that, the snow day call is, believe it or not, is never made in isolation. I mean, I'm talking with the road department or the police at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock. It depends on whenever the storm is happening. I mean, I'll call Jamie Ganvilston Transportation. I could call her at 3 o'clock in the morning. She's like, hello. I mean, she and I are wide awake. We watch the weather the entire night. I usually don't sleep the night before because I'm so worried about when the storm's going to hit. What's the duration going to be like? Is there sleet? Is there freezing rain? What does that mean for transportation? I mean, for a girl from down the shore, I'm very worried
Well,
always
and
about,
The other thing you have to worry about too is with half days, there's no 2-hour delay.
right.
Yeah,
So,
you can't do it.
that's something
Yeah.
that
Yep.
if you're planning on a 2-hour delay, then we could use that as a,
Yep.
Call it a virtual day.
Yep. Yep. So all those
Exactly,
things
yeah.
have to be taken into consideration, so.
Yeah, the snow day is fun, but it would be nice to have 3 and not 13.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, we had
14 at
13
one
a few
year.
years ago.
14, yeah.
Yeah.
So I
That's
think
too
the
many snow.
compromise is a good one, it's
Then you
exciting
throw
to
out
have
the
a.
spoon.
Yeah, it's a couple.
No, then you have a new tradition, which is plug in your Chromebook.
Exactly.
One of
Do
the
you think that one
things-
will take off?
He's the Grinch.
Although, one of the things I think of is, interestingly, so many students failing was blamed on depression. I don't necessarily agree with it to that, degree, having a background in mental health. But I do believe that those little gifts of snow days do decrease and
The anxiety.
depression, anxiety, and it helps mental health because, I don't know, but who doesn't enjoy hanging out in their PJs late, baking cookies, or, doing something with their young kids while they're outside playing in the snow, coming in, doing whatever it is you can. And I think that does just the opposite in a good way. It, builds up families, it helps children get excited, takes their mind off the pandemic. We do live in an area that we have a ski mountain for a reason because of the snow we get. And so I am very pro snow day, but also one of the other things I was thinking is that pending the weather, we are the second largest town in the state, and we have such a varied geographical area. So we have people in the valleys, people up, in different mountain levels. And I may have electricity, but I can't tell you how many times the neighborhood across the street from me doesn't. Or they have it, it's so varied, and I think what makes it difficult, like, we're not a tiny town that's flat and 10 square miles, that we will have consistency. So I guess my concern is if we do call, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, like a home snow day, virtual day, I just don't know about the consistency, because we can't choose our electric company, and we can't choose our internet company, and the internet company is a whole nother can of worms lately, and that's even on good weather. So now you tie in the bad weather, and being that we're such a large town with such different geographic needs wherever we go, I'm just kind of concerned, because now if we're saying even for our students who are home, you have to log on to have a counter's participation. Now, if my neighborhood has power and the students in my neighborhood can log on, but the neighborhood across the street, they don't have it, they can't log on. Do they not get participation? Like, I think that's kind of opening possibly a little bit of a can of worms, because it is going to be weather-based. I'm willing to discuss it, but I thought I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up, those points.
Yeah, I think it's a valid point. I mean, part of it is that I hate to say it, even when calling snow days, it's hit or miss, right? Even on
Right.
October 30th, I had people calling me from parts of town saying they didn't touch scenic lakes, or they didn't touch wherever it was, and we had really treacherous roads, and the road departments, I don't want to speak for them, I don't think got out in front of it, because we really didn't expect a lot of accumulation. It was still warm enough to start to melt by the afternoon. But you bring up a valid point. To be honest, I don't know that we have a solution, and I hate to say it that way. Part of it is we've never done this before, right? We've never, and for years we've said, man, it'd be so awesome if we had virtual days. I mean, 3 years ago I was not here, but when you all had 14 snow days, I bet you would have loved to have a virtual option at the time.
That was
So,
Around 8, it was kind of like, okay,
It was enough.
You would know if part of the town
I think 3 or
loses
4 is
power,
enough.
then you can
In
at
general,
least be
yeah.
understanding that maybe that work would be
Yeah.
24 hours
In
later.
general, what happens is that, between the road department and the police department, they really are pretty good at saying there's a loss of power. They are really good about communicating with us. Usually the night before, like if we know we're gonna get inclement weather, I'll talk to Chief Young the night before and say, hey, make sure that your guy on duty has my cell phone number. Sometimes I'll call that person, at 2 o'clock in the morning, any accumulation. I may touch base with dispatch, 3 or 4 times overnight, just waiting to see. Sometimes it depends on where the storm is coming from,
Right.
so.
But you could call a virtual learning day, and then at like 9 o'clock, let's say power goes out in a significant part of town, then you would
cancel it.
know
We
that,
could.
right? And we could
Yep, and
make
we could make it
accommodations.
a snow day, if we had to.
Yeah, but
For
by
sure.
then,
Take
Mark,
any
all the
risks
kids
as
are
well.
up. You had to wake them up. They couldn't let them sleep.
But then they can
in,
put on
you
their
know?
snow clothes and go outside.
And sleep helps with mental health as well. So you have to weigh all that out.
Those are very good points.
Yep.
So that's just something. And then, if you go and wake up your poor little kids who are, trying to sleep in with their spoons under the pillows, it's a snow day, and then you wake them up and then imagine okay, get in front of your Chromebook and then it's cold.
Ooh, well, those kids are up already, right? The
still be
little
happy.
ones.
Then you
They're
blame
up
it,
at
you
5.
blame it on
already.
March.
Yeah, then I'll drop them off in March. All the little kids will
They're
get
up early,
March.
the little ones. It's
They'll go
it's
sleigh
our
riding
high
in
school
the
kids we can't get up.
All right, so are there any other questions regarding the intended practice for snow days?
No.
Okay.
Okay, the next item for discussion is ESL program update. Dr. McKay is going to speak to this. I just wanted to remind everybody, this was district goal 2.1 on the board goals, the district goals that were approved in August. So we said we would report out for November. So Dr. McKay and Mr. Gagliostro.
Mr. Gagliostro is here, and
Good.
therefore we're going to use his expertise. Ben, tell us a little bit about the program and where we are right now, because things have changed.
Yeah. So, as we talked about in earlier board meetings, we have had a significant increase in population of students with English as a second language. As we went through the screening process this fall, we found many students did not qualify. So we are still currently defined as an English as a second language district, which is we have more than 10 but less than 20 students in a single language area. We're at 19 in Spanish. So should we go get one more student who comes in or who qualifies, because we are still screening, we would have to look at full-time programs. We have a plan in place for that. It would really just entail having our ESL teachers teach one more period of ESL for these ELL learners. And that we would have to apply a waiver from the state for that. But there are many districts in the area who have much larger populations and larger programs who have gotten these waivers. So I don't think we would have an issue with it. But really, right now, we're doing everything we can. The students are getting an ESL period every day, and we're working towards getting them more familiar with reading, writing, and speaking in the English language.
Yeah, so if it goes above 20, then it's a double period for those students, and the district then is evaluated
Yes.
based on the scores in the WIDA and the access test, which the students have to take, which is a growth test to see how they're doing with the language. But believe it or not, 20% of our evaluation as a district then is that score. So it becomes a major part of our entire, if you will, CUSAC piece. So we're keeping an eye on it. But the wonderful thing is we have all sorts of different languages. I read the list to the board the last time, and
Yes, we do. We have
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. We have many
Very
languages
diverse.
coming in, and more weekly. Every week I run a report on Genesis to see new students who have enrolled in the district, and almost every week we've had teachers go speak with the students and their families to see whether screening is warranted and go through that process. So very exciting.
Great.
So I understand why you would not want to, why you may want that waiver for the purposes of not having the CUSAC be so heavily dependent upon that metric. However, if we do have, if the program does continue to grow,
Yes, yeah,
we may need that designation because the students may need those resources to succeed.
They're going to get a double class, and
Okay.
you're talking about basically a whole shift in the program to becoming a major piece. So it will mean either hiring or repositioning some of our folks who have those certs. So,
Okay.
yes. Right, Vin?
Any other questions on the program as it stands? All right.
Mr. Gagliasso, thank you for all of your effort with
Yeah,
this
good
and
job,
the
Vin.
folks that are involved in the program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for sitting around for 2 hours for 3 minutes.
No. Vin was already here. I just thought I would give credit where credit is due. He wasn't sitting here for that reason.
Yeah. And just for the board, when we are reviewing the agenda with the administration, we put a ton of reports and timelines in the board goals. So our new practices, we're sitting there with the board goals in front of us. So that way we're making sure that as we prepare for each of these meetings, that we're hitting each of those targeted timelines of when the board is expecting reports out on the various goals that we're working on. Great.
Okay. May I continue with recommendations?
Yes, thank you.
Recommendations number 1, it is recommended that the board approve the following faculty, staff resignations, retirements, terminations, leaves, transfers, assignment changes, appointments, stipend, salary adjustments, student teaching, mentoring as listed. There is a table on page 3 for the members of the board for your consideration.
Thank you. Can we have a motion for recommendation G1?
Move.
Mr. Chili, second by Mr. Sparta. Questions or comments?
I did have one here, hold on. I'm trying to think which one it was. Never mind. I should have made a note.
Seeing no other questions or comments, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Coughlin? Okay, Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Dr. Peak?
Yes.
Mrs. Powlett?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Yes?
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
And Mr. Chili?
Yes.
Okay,
Motion
number-
carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 2, it is recommended that the board approve the following policies and regulations for a first reading. They are listed at the top of page 4, beginning with policy 1620 and going through bylaw 0164.6.
Can we have a motion for recommendation G2?
Move.
Mr. Chili, second by Mr. Sparta. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Dr. Peak?
Yes.
Mrs. Powlett?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Yes?
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mr. Chili?
Yes.
And Ms. Coughlin?
Motion carries.
I have nothing further.
Thank you. Item H, Ms. Reese.
Tonight on the agenda are items 1 through 3, which I believe are monthly reports that you're given each month. I don't know if you have any questions. The personnel report was left here on the table. The enrollment report and the harassment, intimidation, and bullying report was in your package. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? No.
Okay, item 4 discusses it gives you a draft of calendar meeting dates from January 2021 through June of 2021. We don't have the tentative budget schedule, so these dates were put in here along the time frame from last year, similar to last year. So.
Sure, and during January, we'll probably add budget meetings, as we always do. Any questions regarding this calendar?
Is January 6th?
Is that early enough?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's 7 days, correct?
And if it's a snow date, it's the 7th, then would
Yeah.
that be a problem?
For our reorg meeting?
You could open up the calendar.
I mean, it's a Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
So we could do a Monday or Tuesday.
School's coming back into session on the 4th.
Right.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd feel a little bit more comfortable having it. I know if we had 2 snow days back to back, the state obviously would, work with it, but
Yeah.
I think you're better off having it earlier than.
Like a Tuesday, Brad, or?
Yeah, I think if you have the 5th, at least it gives you a little bit more room.
What are we saying now, the 5th?
Moving the Wednesday, January 6th to Tuesday, January 5th.
I think we come back on Monday, so I think there was time to get the packets out 48 hours in advance.
Oh.
So Wednesday, the
It's about getting
meeting
the
was
agenda
scheduled for the 6th, so
It's just the reorg, right?
Well, it's a
that's
reorg work
usually a
session.
big
Work
agenda.
session.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess it's, yeah.
yeah.
Well,
That's true.
we have to have the agenda posted 24 hours before meeting, correct? It's not 48, is it?
It's usually 48 hours, yeah.
Well,
I mean,
the meeting
it is
notice.
reasonable, but
Yeah.
to the extent you know it, so.
That's true. The
Well,
board
couldn't you
will-
work on the agenda, because you guys are off that week,
Over
right?
Christmas? No. I'm coming to your house and making snow angels, Kelly.
Ooh,
I am.
okay.
Just saying.
Well, it is 7 days, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I know hopefully we don't get a two-dayer there.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, if it is, I mean, what's the state gonna do? Tell you to come in and,
The district no
What are they
longer
gonna do?
exists.
Cut
Oh,
more
well,
of our,
we could do
cut
it
more of
vir-
your
we could
funding?
do it virtually,
I was gonna say it might be
right?
virtual, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
the district would be
That's
virtual
true.
at that
That'd
point.
be
But I
disappointing for
do
the
have
new
to
members,
swear
like, have
new
your
members
swear in
in
virtual, right?
and get their
Yeah.
Kind of a
signature
downer.
that day.
Yeah, the reorg,
Yeah.
we have to do that
Mhm.
within a certain
Alright,
amount of
well-
time. That has to be
Okay.
live,
We
unless we
just-
get guidance otherwise.
All right. So
We
then,
just won't do any spoons on the 5th.
Yeah, all right.
just
Wear
leave it,
your
keep it the same.
pajamas the right way.
So, okay?
Leave it,
Good
yep.
with that?
Okay.
Item number 5, I just wanted to make you aware of 2 resolutions that'll be on the public meeting next week. One is for the change in the healthcare benefits that we're anticipating with the new teacher's contract. So we need to do 2 resolutions, one to cancel our existing health benefits and a new one to start benefits with the state. And item B is 403B additions. There's a new company called Teachers Pension that we would like to add to the 403B. And then also assign a third-party administrator who will review our plans. We have a copy of the 403B. I cannot find the 457 plan. They'll review our plans, make sure they're in compliance, update it for the new vendor, and then monitor our loan withdrawals and contributions going forward. And there's no cost to the district for either one. Any questions on that?
No.
And item number 6 is the water testing results. Before Steve left, he had 2 set of tests done, one at the various sinks and water fountains that were open at the schools, and the other ones from the filling stations. And all the levels were within the range, under the range. So we're good on that.
So what's every building? What buildings were that?
I have the results right here. Rolling Hills, Lounsbury, I think all the buildings were checked.
What was the date of those tests?
So 923 were the drawers, and then the water filling stations were 1010, I believe. So, yeah, we have Glen Meadows, we have Cedar Mountain, and I believe we have the high school. Yeah, so
And
they were all tested.
All tests passed.
Yes.
That's good.
Thank you.
Isn't there, when we do those tests, isn't that water supposed to be sitting there for like 24 hours
Yes.
before it's
It
tested?
has to sit from 24 to 48 hours in
Okay,
the
so
pipe.
how do we test it on a Wednesday? I mean, it's not
I
sitting for
don't know, I
24
wasn't
hours.
here.
No, I thought,
virtual.
I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but I think it was, I thought it was a draw overnight. So it had to be first thing in the morning, and Wednesday were virtual.
So they would have went from, let's
The
say,
last
like
time
2
was
p.m.
Tuesday.
2 p.m. on
2
Tuesday
o'clock.
till at
Wednesday
some point
evening.
Wednesday.
Oh, so that 24-hour time, like if
'Cause the
it
kids
was
weren't in the
1
building.
o'clock. and
Yeah,
then-
we've been virtual Wednesdays since the beginning.
Mhm. That makes sense.
Okay. Any other questions on the water testing results? Okay, thank you.
Okay. Recommendations, item number 1, it is recommended that the board approve the professional development travel that complies with the provisions of NJSA 18A:11-12, as shown in attachment WS5.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 1?
Move.
Second.
Mr. Chili, second by Mr. Sparta. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Dr. Peak,
Yes.
Mrs. Pellet? Mrs. Pellet?
Sorry, muted, yes, yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mr. Chili?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 2, it is recommended that the board approve the application for the Securing Our Children's Future Bond Act application. This includes both water infrastructure grant and a school security grant.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 2?
Move.
Mr.
Second.
Chili and a second by Mr. Sparta. Questions or comments? What is the amount in?
166,000.
For security.
And we're going to, Donna, myself, Pam Kocher, we're all working on this along with Robin Homestead, our grant writer. And as a matter of fact, we're going to do a little more tomorrow.
Yep.
But we would like to, the water testing has been expensive, and we're trying, because it can go back to 2016, we're basically writing the grant to use some of that money that we've already spent on the phosphate program and the water testing and the bottle fountains. And
Okay,
then
good.
more money for additional bottle fountains.
Well, that's good to know. I know that was a question of the board when we started the water program is would we be able to retroactively get
So they're
grant?
allowing that.
Well, that's what we're
good.
trying to do.
Well,
Okay.
this is the money that was
We've spent a lot of money.
voted for last year that they finally bonded for, I guess.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a referendum
That's right.
last year.
From
Right,
last
and then
year.
the security piece is cameras, you know, and just trying to think of all the things that Scott did.
Some
the,
window film
radios to
going
the-
forward, yeah.
I don't know that we want to discuss everything regarding
Okay,
the
all right,
security
yep.
grant, but thank
Good.
you.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Pellet? Did we
Yes.
lose her? Okay. Mr. Sparta?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mr. Chili?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Dr. Peak?
Yes.
Item number 3, it is recommended that the board approve the sale of the following items based on a bid opening of November 10th, 2020.
Can we have a motion for recommendation 3?
Move.
Mr. Chili, second by Mr. Sparta. Questions or comments?
I just have one, that this should have been opened here at the meeting, not last week.
Yeah, so that is a new practice the board has put in place, and Donna, you may not be aware of it. So the board has now, in the last few months, decided to start opening bids in public at our meetings. So that is by no fault of your own, as you know.
Yeah, my
you're-
apologies, Donna, I should have
Okay.
informed you that.
What
was
we
a
do
board
is
decision.
normally we open them in a work session, and then we'll approve them at the next meeting. Because we
Okay.
understand after they get open, they need to be evaluated, and then,
Yeah.
but that way, it's very transparent then that it's open.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Sparta?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mr. Chili?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Dr. Peak?
Yes.
Mrs. Pellet?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Is there an additional
Yes.
recommendation?
Yes, I'd like to add item number 4 to the agenda, a motion to approve that student number 12332 remain at Vernon Township High School in accordance with our policy number 5111, eligibility for residency, non-residency students.
Thank you. Can we have a motion for recommendation 4?
Move.
Second. Mr. Chili, second by Mr. Sparta. Questions or comments? Seeing none, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mr. Chili?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Dr. Peak?
Yes.
Ms. Pellet?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Well done,
Okay.
Ms. Meeks.
Anything else? Okay. Item I is public participation for items on the agenda or other business. We do have members of the public in attendance this evening, both in person and virtually. So we'll begin first with members who are attending in person, then go to virtually. If you would like to make a comment, please state your name and part of town, and you'll have 5 minutes to do so.
Hi, I'm Nikki Smith. I live in Lake Wallfield, September Vernon, again. I am the high school teacher in English, and I am the ECEA president. And I just want to thank Ms. Vino and Dr. McKay for the decision to put the combining of the blue and gold together. I think it's a prudent decision. I think it's best for not only the health and safety of our students, but also of our staff. I also would like to address some of the things that we've heard about issues that parents are having with not being able to get on Zoom, not being able to know where to find certain things, and it is understandable, but there are 2 sides to every story. And please be aware, I know that you only know what you're told. So I feel that I need to tell you our side, okay? That we are also having frustrating issues as well. While we were sitting here, and I shared with Mr. Gagliastro, I had 3 students that should have been taking a test today contact me 7:30, oh, now it's 9 o'clock, that I see that you closed the test. Why didn't you take it during the time period that I gave it? And I gave a long time period, more than they needed, during the school day. I had a student, and this is my personal experience, I'm not going to speak for others, that I had a student email me at 2 o'clock in the morning. These are the issues that we're dealing with. So I just want you to be aware that both sides, we're still trying to work through this, and it's not perfect by any means, but we're all doing the very darn best that we can, and we're trying to engage the students, and we're trying to make sure that they show up. But I can't reach through a computer. I had one student tell me that, Mrs. Smith, I'm sorry, I fell asleep during your Zoom. That's why I didn't respond. If they fall asleep in school, I usually drop a book next to them. I can wake them up. Over the internet, it's difficult. So we're all dealing with issues, and we're all struggling, we're all trying, we're all doing our darndest. And I think that we all have to be aware of that it's not one-sided. It's everyone is frustrated, everyone is tired, everyone has glitches with their internet. We're all working very, very hard, and we do want to work with administration for what is best for our students, for our staff. So I just want to put that forward to show the other side of the coin. For no other reason, not to complain, not to put anybody out, but just so you know that there are two sides to the coin, all right? And I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I just respond to that briefly?
Well, we do have open board member forum right after the public participation.
Well, I know, but it's in response to what Ms. Smith said.
I just want to give the members of the public first an opportunity,
Okay.
and then we'll go to open board member. Anybody else who's here in person? Okay, and Matt, any comments coming through on the live stream?
Only the one so far.
Okay. There is a comment from Barb Monschauer, and that is, I wanted to thank the central office for prioritizing the health and safety of the students, faculty, and staff by changing the reopening plan. It is appreciated that while this change does create its own challenges, health and safety are of utmost importance. Thank you, Mrs. Barbara Monschauer. She signed it. No other comments coming through, Matt?
I think the chat window's not open. Well, someone just texted me that.
Okay, let's.
That text from Barbara was already there earlier.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, we'll give Matt a minute because of the technical delays.
Going to break out the conversation box? Or?
I know.
Would this be,
There is a comment that just came through from Martin Peringer, and that is, this is the 21st century hybrid online meetings should continue permanently. I just wish you would use something better than YouTube. Discord works well for robotics, better than Zoom. Please do it. I believe robotics is already state compliant with the meetings as you described. I can have my guy do it before the next meeting. He says he was watching it. Thank you. And recognizing that we may, there's more, but from what I heard of the state requirements, that is how robotics operates already, or at least 90% close, tailored to our needs. And, and as we said, we're going to evaluate what we need to do to make sure that we're compliant with the state's regulation regarding the Open Public Meetings Act. Another comment has come through. I'll just give Matt a second. This is from Michael Gelfin. Once grading data is available next week, will individual cohort performance be compared side by side? And if one cohort is struggling more than others, how will you address that disparity? And that's a good question. And once we're done with public comments, we can circle back with administration. The comment is from Amanda Reeker of Glenwood. How would moving to in-person only board meetings work for people that are high risk? Can you please set up Zoom? And I believe that, just to reiterate from the board's perspective, that if we do set up the go to in-person board meetings, we would still continue YouTube, at least for the time being.
I think we could live stream.
Yeah, we'd still be live streaming, we just wouldn't have the chat option like we had in the past.
Right. Matt, is that all of the comments?
I have one more, sorry.
Okay.
Two more.
This comment is from Martin O'Donnell. In reference to the Zoom meetings, when you set up a meeting, you can email the meeting notice to the kids. They can get notifications on their phones. I would like to thank the public for their votes and look forward to serving on the board. I would have been there, but I do not feel well and wanted to take precautions. Sure.
I'm getting
There's-
texts that people can't comment.
If you have them refresh their YouTube, that may help.
What do they
So,
have to do?
For members of the
Refresh.
public who are watching, if you do not see the chat enabled, you need to refresh your screen. During the non-public comment section of the meeting, the chat was disabled, and it has been enabled at this time.
Sorry, I didn't know that part.
Yeah, I just tested it, so that helped.
I'm getting that they're refreshing their screen, but they can't comment.
Maybe log out and log back in.
They do need to be logged into Google, so if they are not logged into YouTube or logged into Gmail, they won't be able to.
So log in by Gmail.
Right. Elizabeth Felsey of Town Center. Jennifer Pellet, I believe it was, is exactly right in my situation. I have 3 children in 3 different schools, 1st, 2nd, and 8th. First off, I love our teachers. They are amazing. I think some of the comment got cut off. Cynthia Monaco of Vernon. What is the maximum amount of students the VTSD will put in K through 3 virtual classes? And there are a few questions that may be circled back to during open board member forum at the end of the meeting. The next comment is from Dave Zwire, and it says, I believe there was an issue with the length. Part 1, a huge thank you to all the teachers and staff for their hard work and being on the front lines. And I'm waiting for the part 2.
Excuse me.
Sorry, it's coming fast now.
Martin O'Donnell commented that the town council uses Zoom very effectively and the public can speak when they open the meeting to the public. And part 2 is from Dave Zwires. In response to Mrs. Smith, we need to stop talking about sides. To get through this, we need to be unified and using words like we and together and not us and them. We'll give it another moment to see if any last comments come through. Matt, is that comment you,
That was the rest of.
Ms. Felsey?
Sorry.
That's Ms. Felsey's comment?
Yeah.
Okay. The rest of Ms. Felsey's comment was, between 3 kids, I'm dealing with 12 teachers doing things 12 different ways. As a parent on my Schoology account, I can't access my 1st and 2nd graders' assignments when they post them on a slideshow. One of my kids is so far behind he feels like he's drowning. I don't know what to tell him. He does what he can in a day, especially when I have to walk 2 other kids through every step of every assignment they're assigned. For my kids, they're not learning in a purely virtual situation. How are we going to handle kids who are inevitably falling behind from this situation? Another thought, why can't students eat lunch in their classrooms rather than in a cafeteria? As someone who has attended BOE meetings on and off for several years now, I don't think I've ever seen 200 people attend a board meeting. I think it's fantastic that so many people choose to be informed and involved in this way. Okay. I do not see any other comments coming through, so at this time we will close it to.
No, I just.
I already read that one.
Oh, there's one.
Yes, yeah.
I have one more. Sorry.
There is one more? And the next comment is from Amanda Reeker of Glenwood. If you turn off commenting on the YouTube stream, how can high-risk parents ask questions when you go to in-person meetings? Again, there were a few questions here that I think are going to be discussed during open board member forum. So, seeing no other comments.
There's just one coming through, if you could wait 1 second.
Sorry.
There's one more.
Sorry.
Someone's having trouble typing.
Sorry. We'll give him a moment.
Oh, that you have to click on a desktop mode in order to be able to comment. That was the problem. If you're on your
If you're on your phone.
If you're on your phone.
I think the last one is Jessica Paladini. She's just having trouble typing it.
We will leave the chat room open for another 30 seconds, and if another comment doesn't come through, we'll close it to the public at this time, at that time. Okay, the comment did come through, and that was from Jessica Paladini, and that is, I just want to thank the BOE for having both live and streaming at the same time. I think that it is wonderful. Also, the township still does Zoom, which is great, but the Environmental Commission absolutely refuses to do so. Also, a big thank you to all the teachers for doing such a great job. Okay. At this time, we'll close it to the public. I know that some board members had some questions, and there were questions that came through at the live stream that we might want to discuss further. So we'll move on to item J, which is open board member forum.
So I just wanted to respond really quickly to Mrs. Smith, and just to say that when I mentioned earlier that some kids might not be able to find things or have difficulty getting their Zoom links, I did not mean that to reflect on the teachers. I think the teachers have been amazing, and when I go on Schoology for my kids' work, I can always, figure out where it is. I just meant that there were some glitches early on, and also some kids, might not look in the right place for something right away, and then just sort of over time behind, and then it becomes overwhelming. And I know that, there've been, there is work on both sides in terms of getting everything settled, but I mean, getting used to the adjustment, like she said, but I'm worried about, those kids that are failing, whether maybe they gave up early in the process and just kind of got behind. And once you're behind, I think it's a little harder. You just, if you haven't managed to figure out where stuff is. And I do know, there were times like my son once couldn't find the test, and it turned out the test hadn't been open for him because he has an extra time thing on his test, and that was why it wasn't working. It wasn't the teacher's fault or anybody's fault, and it got rectified like that. It was really fast. But, if he hadn't told me and I hadn't written her, he just would have timed out and not taken the test in time. So there's just little glitches, and I just think that the kids don't have tech support. And if they're not vocal about it, and kids sometimes aren't, that could be possibly contributing to that failure rate that we're worried about. So, it's just something that I wanted to see if there was something we could do about. But I didn't mean it to reflect on the teachers. I think they're doing amazing. So that's it. Sorry for the long-winded comment.
Thank you.
Mrs. Felsey was talking about, that seemed like a similar concern with
Right.
Schoology.
Right.
So I think the first step, we have, Janet and Matt have created videos to help folks navigate.
Yeah, we
And we-
actually put out a podcast
We
just
put
for
out a
parents,
podcast just for the
a week
parents,
ago, but people are
and
still
listed all
struggling.
the,
Yeah.
the videos that they could take a look at to help them, self-help videos. But if they reach out to the principal of the building, I'm sure that he will direct anybody in his building to help the parent out. And oftentimes when you contact the teacher, they're like, oh, yeah, well, just,
Right here, they
it's
know
right
where it
here,
is.
and
Yeah.
this is where it is. But again, we did try to standardize some of that, and our teachers are doing a real fine job. But I do understand the frustration. That does happen. And then Ms. Monaco asked about the total number of students that can be in a virtual class. I did poll our principals and talked about where the numbers are. I'm not exactly sure, depends on which virtual class it is. We have numbers as low as 17, and we have numbers sitting right at 30. So I assume it's around 30, and maybe that's her concern, or a little bit higher. It's very difficult as people are moving in and out of to take your personnel and make sure that you have enough people for the movement in or the movement out, considering that we can't just go hire new teachers. So at times, I'm sure the numbers are a little bit more than people expected on some of those. But I can't say for a fact that it's what it is.
Thank you, Chuck. I also want to address some of the questions regarding next week for the live stream. If you missed the beginning of the meeting, we were discussing new regulation that has come out from the state regarding compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act. There's certain thresholds in place for how boards or public bodies may operate and be in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act if having meetings virtually. The board at the earlier part of the meeting decided that for the time being, we're going to go back to the full board being in person, and then public comments would have to be in person as well, while we figure out if and how we want to proceed with being in compliance with the new regulations out from the state. So we will still have the live stream, just to clarify that for anybody. That's something we've been doing for over 2 years, well before COVID. In an effort to be transparent with the community, we've always live streamed our meetings for in recent memory, and that will continue.
And And parents are welcome to always email their teacher, email the district superintendent
Email us,
with
yeah.
questions at any time. They don't have to wait. I mean, it's nice to have a public comment section. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that very much, but I don't want parents to feel like they have to wait for a board meeting. They can reach out, to our administration whenever something comes up, or to their teacher.
The guidance that we got from the state, was that from school boards or?
No, this was from the board attorney.
Yeah, but the stuff that came out from the state.
That was issued by the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, Division of Local Government
So it
Services.
should be covering all.
It covers
All
all
public
public
meetings.
bodies.
All
Okay.
local government, not
Yeah.
just school boards.
Remote public meetings for all public bodies, yeah. So. Anything else for open board member forum?
Yes, apparently we skipped Michael's question. Nobody addressed it.
The question, I think the question was, would there be some kind of evaluation of grades or
yes.
performance indicators of the cohorts, I think hybrid versus virtual? So as Dr. McKay indicated before, in the in the discussion portion under superintendent's report, the marking period hasn't yet closed. Regardless of COVID, we always look at grades at the end of the marking period, so we will certainly be taking a look at the grades at the end of this marking period. I certainly can't say how we respond to them until we see where they land. We may see consistent failures in both, for hybrid and virtual learners. We may see more failures in one cohort or the other. We don't know that yet, but we will certainly be analyzing those grades once the grades are all in for the first marking period. Right, Chuck?
Okay, anything else for open board member forum? Okay, seeing no other comments, we have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Chili, second by Mr. Sparta. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.